Warrior Lore. Chapter 2303. The gap between each level of the Saint Realm was also a huge chasm that ordinary people could not cross at all. Feng Jin's expression changed. He was gradually being suppressed. However, Feng Jin's cultivation was at the middle stage of the Saint Beast Realm. His heavenly Flame Phoenix clan bloodline was also incomparably powerful. Scarlet flames overflowed into the sky and drowned the sky. Du Xiaofu attacked violently, wanting to test himself. Star-shattering fist. Domineering Dao. Domineering Dao. Rock descends to the 9 heavens. Du Xiaofu's golden wings flapped widely, like a true rock striking the sky. He soared into the sky and shattered the void. His voice was like thunder, and his various attacks and supreme beast golden-winged rock became more and more domineering. After stepping into the Sage Realm, Du Xiaofu's various improvements during this period of time, in addition to the various benefits obtained from various comprehensions, had turned into absolute combat strength at this moment. The Cyan Spirit Armor and the Immortal Mystic Body were Du Xiaofu's trump cards. Such a defense was even better than Feng Jin's. Even the benefits he had obtained from Senior Heavenly Wood Divine Tree and comprehended the mysterious profundity had always been of great use to Du Xiaofu. It had helped Du Xiaofu recover quickly. In such a great battle, the invisible help was enormous and unimaginable. Huff, huff. Everyone held their breaths as they waited for such a great battle. Long Qi and the others became more and more alarmed. Xie Qi no longer dared to be careless and had been secretly vigilant. In such a battle, if he was not careful, he would probably destroy this city. The more Feng Jin fought, the more shocked he became. This strange brat was too terrifying. His defense was as abnormal as the legendary golden-winged rock. It was like a real golden-winged rock. The might of his lightning was also extremely terrifying, causing his beast soul to tremble. If this brat were to step into the middle stage of the Saint Realm, how terrifying would he be? He would probably not be a match for him at all. Thinking of this, Feng Jin could not help but tremble in his heart. He did not dare to imagine. Rumble. The two of them collided again in a flash. Terrifying energy runes rippled out, and the surrounding space exploded like fireworks. It directly cracked and finally turned into a vacuum. Qi-la. Suddenly, Feng Jin revealed a gloomy smile. With a shake of his arm, the blazing flames in his hand condensed into a spear that was dazzling and blazing like surging lava. It was like a flaming dragon that charged into the sky and pierced straight towards Du Xiaofu. Oomph! Du Xiaofu had expected this. He flapped his golden wings and sneered. In the purple and gold light, he flapped his wings and soared into the sky. He used the wave-like free steps and twisted the void to move horizontally. With an incredible speed and angle, he dodged the spear and brushed past Du Xiaofu's shoulder. Even though he was wearing the blue spirit armor, he still felt a scorching breath passing by his neck. His hair stood on end. Sumeru illusion. All of a sudden, Du Xiaofu's eyes glowed brightly. A mighty surge of primordial spirit power fluctuated, and the Sumeru illusion affected his spirit. Feng Jin was affected. The power of Du Xiaofu's primordial spirit was definitely not inferior to his physical body. Feng Jin knew that Du Xiaofu was a dual cultivator, but he never expected that the other party would suddenly use a primordial spirit attack in such an intense battle. Furthermore, it was such a strange primordial spirit attack. Almost in an instant, Du Xiaofu's hand seals condensed at the same time. Suddenly, palm seals that filled the sky poured out like a torrential rain and directly enveloped Feng Jin. This was the heavenly horse Violent Palm. It could erupt with countless palm seals in an instant, and it was enough to shatter the void with each palm strike. Bang, 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 bang. Numerous palm prints enveloped Feng Jin and fiercely landed on his body, causing the surrounding space to tremble and shatter. The violent power that emanated from the energy ripples caused the scalps of the demon beast experts in the distance to go numb. Biffed. By the time Feng Jin regained his senses, it was already too late. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body was like a bird with broken wings as he rushed into a huge building outside the square. Rumble. Boulders exploded, and the earth quaked. The terrifying impact caused the surrounding buildings to collapse and the ground to crack, turning into ruins. The surroundings trembled and clicked their tongues. No one had expected such an outcome. Du Xiaofu stepped into the air. Lightning surged in his eyes, and purple-gold lightning arcs surged around his body. The golden wings on his back flapped, and his figure swooped down. Du Xiaofu would not miss such an opportunity to take his life while he was down. "Brat, I won't rest until you die today." Suddenly, an extremely cold voice roared out from the ruins on the ground. A terrifying energy fluctuation spread out from the ruins. Du Xiaofu's eyes moved, and his figure could not help but stop. Then, he flapped his wings and retreated. Boom! Boom! In an instant, the ruins on the ground trembled for no reason. Then, a monstrous scarlet flame swept out from within like a storm. The aura of a supreme beast spread out, bringing with it a monstrous blazing aura that shot into the sky. Coo! The cry of a phoenix was like the cry of a phoenix. A huge flaming phoenix flew into the sky, along with the huge rocks in the ruins. It instantly flapped its wings and rose into the sky. The enormous beast body, which was tens of thousands of feet in size, was like a cloud in the sky. Light covered the sky, and mysterious runes enveloped the void. The surroundings were like a sea of flames, and an indescribable blazing pressure pressed down on the sky. This was Feng Jin's main body. It was quite similar to the Phoenix clan, but it lacked the magnificence and nobility of the true Phoenix clan. However, at this moment, the aura on Feng Jin's body had risen to its peak. His main body was his strongest combat strength. Feng Jin had never thought that he would have to use his main body when facing an early-stage, Saint-stage human. But now, Feng Jin's killing intent was monstrous, and his anger could not be suppressed. He also felt lingering fear. The human in front of him was too strange. The astonishing strength and future he displayed made him deeply afraid. Once an expert stepped into the intermediate stage of the Saint stage, he would be no match for him. Therefore, no matter what, he had to completely kill him today. Kill! Feng Jin's main body roared ferociously as crimson light surged out of his eyes. It was as if two volcanoes were erupting, and it was incomparably terrifying. He spread his wings and covered the void as he pounced towards Du Xiaofu, who seemed incomparably small at this moment. Crack! Crack! Wherever the enormous flaming phoenix's body passed, a terrifying crushing force shattered the void and swept down with surging lava. A monstrous aura swept out crazily, enough to shatter everything. Can that human still stop it? Sensing that terrifying aura from afar, many people's hearts raced. Can he still withstand it? Xiao Yao retreated into the distance, her eyes glowing. For some reason, she was actually worried about that human to the point that cold sweat broke out on her forehead. Even at this moment, Long Qi and Jiao Jiao were secretly focused as they stared at the scene. A terrifying force instantly arrived. Du Xiaofu stood in the air as the golden wings of the great rock spread out behind him. He was like a boulder, unmoving like a mountain. It was also at this moment that Du Xiaofu made his move. Wind and thunder rumbled as the violet gold celestial palace appeared in his hands. It exuded the aura of a peerless divine weapon, as well as the aura of a supreme divine weapon, wreaked havoc in the air. The golden wings of the great rock on his back flapped like an eagle soaring into the sky. His movements were as fast as lightning as he slashed out with his sword. Boom! Boom! This sword strike was as if it could split a mountain. It was simple and domineering, without any fancy moves. However, an incomparably domineering aura suddenly spread out from that sword strike, causing the space to tremble violently. Under the stunned gazes of many people from that clan, wherever Du Xiaofu's sword strike passed, space almost collapsed, revealing traces of a vacuum. It was a simple sword strike, but it contained the Overlord Sword Dao and the Lightning Martial Vein. Accompanied by a vast and mighty energy fluctuation, purple-gold lightning arcs rose and fell like an ocean, spreading out and shaking the heavens. Everything happened very quickly. In a short instant, they met and intertwined with the flaming phoenix's body. Coo! Coo! Feng Jin hissed as the ferocious might of its enormous beast body spread out, causing the heavens and earth to tremble. Sword light spread out as divine radiance covered the sky. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, accompanied by an endless domineering might of execution. Bang! This entanglement did not last for long before the monstrous flames scattered. The feathers on the body of the huge, distant sky flame phoenix withered. The empty space was distorted, after which it turned into a human figure that flew out miserably in the empty space. Finally, it landed heavily on the square. The frightening force directly caused the huge square, which had been strengthened, to be covered with arm-sized cracks in an instant. The ground trembled as Feng Jin crawled up. His hair was disheveled, and he was in an extremely sorry state. His mouth was filled with blood, and his arms and abdomen were dyed red with blood. It was an injury caused by the sword light. Blood was flowing non-stop, and the wound was so deep that his bones could be seen. On the square, the feathers of the flaming phoenix drifted down, suffused with light. Feng Jin raised his head and looked at the figure in the sky with a gloomy expression. His eyes were filled with shock. Long Qi, Jiao Xiao, and the others did not expect that human to be so ferocious. Feng Jin's body was also severely injured. Du Xiaofu stepped into the air with his sword in hand. Under the green spirit armor, the great rock wings, and the lightning martial vein, the light was like the sun, and his aura was astonishing. Cuckoo! Such an aura caused the hearts of all the living beings in the surroundings to tremble. They swallowed their saliva and felt a chill run down their spines. They looked at the majestic young man in the sky, who was shining with purple-gold lightning, and all of them trembled in fear. Qi, how could Du Xiaofu let go of such an opportunity so easily? This enmity had already been completely formed. If he didn't kill Feng Jin today, he would have another opponent in the future. He didn't stop. He raised the purple-gold heavenly tower in his hand, and killing intent surged in his eyes as he swooped down again. At this moment, Feng Jin, who was originally overbearing and aloof, was afraid. Fear surged out from his heart, and he no longer cared about his face. As he retreated with all his might, he shouted, "Long Qi, brother Jiao Xiao, quickly kill this human together. Brat, don't be arrogant." Long Qi came back to his senses and immediately rushed out. A ferocious aura swept out, and the aura of a mid-stage holy beast swept out. It transformed into a bolt of lightning that charged directly towards Du Xiaofu. Jiao Xiao's expression changed, but his figure also rushed out. Blazing green and red flames spread out, and runes interweaved, transforming into a blazing pillar of light. The light shot into the sky and also charged towards Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu had no choice but to pay attention to the two mid-stage Holy Beast Realm experts attacking at the same time. Although he might be able to severely injure Feng Jin again if he fought head-on, he couldn't be sure that he could kill him. It wasn't good to put himself in danger. Chapter 2304. Qila. Du Xiaofu spun around and swung the purple-gold heavenly tower in his hand. Sword light overflowed into the sky and intertwined with each other. A large expanse of resplendent sword light instantly swept out in all directions, blocking Jiao Qi and Long Qi. Clang clang. The sword light tore through space, causing the void to tremble. Resplendent light erupted and clanged, blocking Jiao Qi and Long Qi at the same time. But at this moment, Feng Jin had already escaped. Where is he? But then, Long Qi, Jiao Qi, and Feng Jin all realized that Du Xiaofu's figure had disappeared. "Qi Hu, watch out." At the same time, Long Qi shouted loudly as his expression changed drastically. "Qi La!" Golden light instantly surged out of the void, and Du Xiaofu's figure appeared in front of Qi Hu, who was watching the show from the side. Buzz. When the figure broke through the air, Du Xiaofu's purple-gold heavenly tower directly slashed out. The sword light swept out, and the void was torn apart. Accompanied by the purple-gold lightning that spread out, a terrifying aura was like a tilted ocean that filled the void. Du Xiaofu did not chase after Feng Jin anymore. With Jiao Qi and Long Qi involved, the chances were not high. If he were to tangle with three mid-stage holy beasts at the same time, It would be very easy for him to fall into a dangerous situation. By the time Chi-Hu realized what was going on, it was already too late. He had been watching the show from the sidelines, feeling that this matter had nothing to do with him. He was here for his dead descendant, but Chi-Hu did not expect that the human youth was the target, and he did not know why he was being targeted. Not good. Under that terrifying might, Chi-Hu's expression was immediately horrified. How could he have thought that the human would suddenly attack him? Feng Jin had already been crippled, so how could he be a match for him? Almost reflexively, boundless aura erupted from Chi-Hu's body. As the talisman mystic patterns erupted, a huge four-winged demon snake phantom rushed out to block the attack. Its four wings flapped in the air, and the snake flicked its tongue, erupting with terrifying fluctuations. However, this four-winged demon snake phantom could not block the mighty sword light at all and was directly destroyed. The sword light tore through the void and engulfed Chi-Hu's body with a force that blotted out the sky. Swish, swish, swish. Many people could clearly see that Chi-Hu's body was pierced through by the sword light. Like a sieve, numerous holes appeared on his body before it exploded. Bastard! Long Chi roared in rage. His voice was like the roar of a dragon. His body swelled up, and in an instant, light filled the sky as he transformed into the true form of the 8 Desolation demonic dragon. He was like a flood dragon, exuding the might of a dragon as he pounced towards Du Xiaofu with a terrifying pressure. Activate the formation. Zhao Qi's expression changed as his voice rang out. Rumble. As soon as Xie Xie's voice fell, the entire city began to shake. Pillars of light shot up into the sky from talisman runes. At this moment, the entire giant city seemed to have come alive. The mysterious runes of the talisman covered the sky and distorted the void. A blazing aura filled the sky. A huge talisman formation appeared, enveloping the entire city and shaking the Beast King mountain range. This was the grand spell formation of the Bai Fong Divine Bird Clan. Once it was activated, it could defend against external attacks and could also trap powerful enemies. This grand spell formation was not simple. It was enough to protect the Bai Fong Divine Bird Clan. Golden light filled the air, and the shadow of a golden ape appeared in the grand spell formation. Its golden eyes shone brightly, and it was filled with the aura of a supreme being. Facing the grand spell formation, it was as if it was nothing and broke out of the formation in an instant. Du Xiaofu did not look at the method of breaking the formation on the jade slip. He wanted to test the talent of the Scarlet Bone Horse Monkey's primordial spirit first. This grand spell formation was not simple, but it was not at the level where it could block the talent of the Scarlet Bone Horse Monkey. Swish! Outside the grand spell formation, the golden ape shadow disappeared. Du Xiaofu's figure stood tall and straight. His azure spirit armor and golden rock wings complemented each other. He was like a real rock in human form. He looked back at the depths of the Bai Fong Divine Bird Clan, then flapped his wings and flew away, disappearing in an instant. Roar! The dragon's roar shook the sky and came out from the grand spell formation. Long Qi's body could not break out of the formation and was trapped inside. In the inner city, on a tall mountain peak, 2 old figures stood quietly. One of them was staggering, and his face was old. He gave people the feeling that he was about to die. It was the old lady who had looked for Du Xiaofu not long ago. Beside the old lady, there was a black-clothed elder. He wore a wide robe and had short black hair. He looked thin, but one could tell that he was strong. He is obviously a human, but he has the aura of the Golden Rock Clan. It is very strange. He also has the Scarlet Bone Horse Monkey's primordial spirit. It is unbelievable. The black-clothed elder's eyes were filled with doubt. He is killing for me to see, to remind me, the old lady said. There was a slight fluctuation in her calm eyes. She softly said, "It looks like this human really does have feelings for little Qing. I have underestimated him. This human is interesting. Miss Little Qing came from the outside world and has the blood of the Bai Fong clan. It seems that the blood in Little Tiger's body must have come from the ancestor of my clan. That kind of blood is extraordinary," the elder said with bright eyes. "You have come personally. It shows that you value this. But if you want to bring Little Tiger back to your Dark Sky Tiger clan, The four-winged demonic snake clan may have some objections, the old lady said. The blood in Little Tiger's body is extraordinary. We cannot let anything happen to him. The body of the junior from the four-winged demonic snake clan has been destroyed. Let him go. If he still dares to make a fuss, I don't mind teaching the four-winged demonic snake clan a lesson, the black-clothed elder said in a domineering manner. The old lady smiled faintly. Then, she looked into the distance and said, "It seems that the remains of those clans will not be able to resist the temptation of making some moves during this Beast Alliance meeting. The entrance to the outside world has been opened once again. It will be even more lively. The people outside want to come in, and the people inside want to go out," the elder said. In the Baifeng Divine Bird Clan, the formation dissipated and everything began to calm down. "Human, you can't escape from the Beast Alliance." Long Qi, who had withdrawn his body, shouted angrily in the sky above the square. The golden-clothed elder of the Goldbiter Rat clan also withdrew his body. One of his arms was broken at the shoulder, dripping with blood, and his face was as pale as ash. The golden-clothed elder knew very well that if not for the strength of the Goldbiter Rat clan's body, he would have been killed by that punch. His opponent was also an early-stage Saint Realm human, but his strength was so terrifying. The phantom of a four-winged demonic snake, which was about 10 feet long, emitted a dazzling light. Its aura was terrifying. Its ferocious eyes were full of resentment and shock. This was Qi, whose beast soul that had escaped. His body was directly shattered, but at the last moment, he relied on the means of the four-winged demonic snake clan to escape with half his life. However, such a serious injury was equivalent to losing half his life. He would not be able to progress any further in the future and would even become weaker and weaker. This kind of blow was undoubtedly the most painful for any cultivator. At this moment, Qi still could not understand why the human would attack him in the end. He did not provoke the human. Oomph! On the ground below, Little Tiger snorted coldly as he looked at Qi beast soul body. The third young master must have done this on purpose. The entire scene was filled with shock, and the surrounding living beings had yet to recover from their shock. In an instant, 2 Holy Beast Realm experts were killed, 3 were heavily injured, and one of them even had his body destroyed. Fengjin, a mid-stage Holy Beast Realm expert from the Heavenly Flame Phoenix clan, was also no match for him and was heavily injured. In the end, the human youth even swaggered off. Even the Baifeng Divine Bird Clan's formation couldn't trap him. How ferocious and powerful was he? Since when did the human race have such a terrifying young expert? It's too terrifying. Some Monster Beast Realm experts exclaimed. That human youth was too terrifying. He was not old, but his strength was terrifying. The aura of that human youth did not seem like a human either. It was more like a golden-winged rock. The golden-winged rock has not appeared for a long time. Rumor has it that it is an extremely terrifying race. It is said that the golden-winged rock existed a long time ago, but it did not appear again. The crowd was shocked and only dispersed after a long time. The Saint Realm expert actually hid his strength to cheat treasures. Humans are indeed shameless. This is the most shameless Saint Realm expert I have ever seen. Meanwhile, Du Xiaofu's reputation as the most shameless Saint Realm cultivator had spread throughout the Beast Alliance. The monster kings who had lost all their beasts yesterday were gritting their teeth in anger and shock. At this moment, Du Xiaofu had already left the Beast King mountain range. In order to avoid any accidents, he landed in a valley 4 hours later. His face was slightly pale, and he had consumed a lot of energy in the battle. However, Du Xiaofu had a rough understanding of his own combat strength and the combat strength of a mid-stage Saint Beast. With his current cultivation strength, even if he encountered a peak mid-stage Saint Beast, he should be able to fight. However, Du Xiaofu knew very well that if he encountered a mid-stage Saint Beast, it would be a different story. For example, Little Star, Du Xiaoyao, and the others, if they were at the same mid-stage Saint Beast, even Tin Fengjin would not be able to compare to them. In the valley, Du Xiaofu found a hidden place and sat down cross-legged. He took out a yellow spirit snow Ganoderma and chewed on it. This was a miraculous medicine for recovering profound qi. In any case, he had obtained countless precious medicines and spirit herbs yesterday. Du Xiaofu narrowed his eyes and pondered. He had killed the deer and the others to avoid leaving any trouble for himself. In addition, Little Qing was in the Baifeng Divine Bird Clan after all. Although everything seemed to be beneficial to Little Qing, this was someone else's territory. Du Xiaofu knew that terrifying old woman was definitely watching in the dark. He had made a move to inform the Baifeng Divine Bird Clan that Little Qing still had an older brother behind her. If the Baifeng Divine Bird Clan did anything to harm her, he would definitely not be polite. Peeking with his mind, Ouyang Shuang, Dai Xingyu, Qing Wan, and Little Qing were all refining the saint medicine in the desolate ancient space. Du Xiaofu also sat down cross-legged and circulated the Golden Rock clan's cultivation method to refine the yellow spirit snow Ganoderma. In this dangerous place, he had to maintain his peak state at all times. Du Xiaofu did not dare to be careless. Chapter 2305. Faint golden light rippled, dyeing the surroundings a faint golden color. Although the yellow spirit snow Ganoderma was a precious medicine, with Du Xiaofu's cultivation level and the abnormal size of his divine watchtower, he was unable to replenish it. Du Xiaofu was really reluctant to use sacred medicine to recover his body's consumption. Although he had won quite a lot of sacred medicine this time, they were all very useful. Circulating the Golden Rock clan's cultivation method to refine the yellow spirit snow Ganoderma, Du Xiaofu continued to comprehend the three swords in his mind. However, this only lasted for a few hours. Du Xiaofu withdrew his hand seal, and the golden light around him surged into his body like a cloud and disappeared. Phew! A mouthful of turbid air was exhaled from his abdomen. Du Xiaofu opened his eyes, and the golden light surged. Then, it was restrained, and he regained his clarity. Du Xiaofu's gaze flickered, and he retracted the restrictions and seals he had set up around him. Someone had broken into the vicinity and caused a huge commotion. After a while, a dazzling light shone from the mountain range in the distance. Terrifying energy ripples could be felt even through the void, and low muffled sounds of energy colliding could be heard continuously. Du Xiaofu looked into the distance. The mysterious runes that covered half the sky were emitting energy ripples. There was a familiar aura, and there was even the power of a supreme being rippling. His gaze flickered, and his figure flashed out. That familiar aura made Du Xiaofu want to investigate it. At the mountain range, a giant ape covered in grayish-white scales was currently standing in the air. The scales were shining brightly, and they were like natural armor covering its body. Its aura was vast and unparalleled, and it was very majestic as it stood in the void. The giant ape's aura was vast and mighty, and the light aura on its body was like a blazing flame that swept out in all directions, causing space to tremble. Its formless power was terrifying and ferocious, enough to shake one's spirit. It's that ferocious ape, the demonic ape. When he saw the grayish-white giant ape, Du Xiaofu recognized it at first glance. No wonder the aura felt familiar. How could Du Xiaofu forget that ferocious ape? It was the ferocious ape that fought with the giant fish for the half of the mysterious bone when he had stepped into this fearsome place. Then, it and the ferocious bird were intimidated by him and fled. He did not expect to see it again here. And then, Du Xiaofu's deus, divinity, Du Xiaofu's eyes deus, in the void, a small and beautiful figure in the void. That beautiful figure was graceful and tiny, but at this moment, 9 divine halos that seemed like blazing divine flames were above her head, and they occupied half of the sky. They carried the mighty sound of the heavens, and it was like a heavy hammer being struck by a heavenly drum. It was sufficient to make all living beings in the mountain range tremble with fear. It was a graceful woman. At this moment, her body was surrounded by light. Her figure was graceful and curvaceous. She wore a light blue crepe skirt, and her face was cold and enchanting. Rumble. The sound of the heavens never stopped, and the energy fluctuated. The jade bell hanging from the corner of the woman's dress jingled in the wind. The soft white silk tied around her waist outlined her perfect and voluptuous figure. Her cold and enchanting face was solemn at this moment. Grand Sovereign Nirvana, Lu Limo. Du Xiaofu was a little surprised. This was actually a Nirvana stage Grand Sovereign. More importantly, He didn't expect this woman to be the familiar Lu Limo. Judging from the aura emanating from Lu Limo's body, her cultivation had already reached the pinnacle of the undying realm. Swish, swish, Lu Limo gave it her all as she held a powerful sword in her hand. Her aura was far above that of an ordinary sacred weapon. The sword radiance roared like a tiger, and it was accompanied by the supreme strength. Thousands of sword radiance shadows cut through the void and swept towards the demonic ape. Chi-la-la, the sword light overflowed into the heavens, tearing apart the void. The mountain range below also cracked open, and towering trees directly collapsed. Many creatures in the mountain range were trembling and crawling. It's useless. The demonic ape opened his mouth and let out a cold snort. His eyes were filled with astonishment, but he didn't care. He waved his claws, and light overflowed into the heavens. A large area of the void was distorted, and the thousands of sword radiance that cut through the void were imprisoned in the void. Rumble. The space trembled, and then a terrifying energy swept out in all directions, shaking the entire sky. Boom. The void rumbled as Lu Limo furrowed her brows. Another type of mysterious rune appeared on her body, making her curvy figure even more dazzling. Her aura continued to rise in an instant. In an instant, it rose to a level close to the sage-to-be level, surpassing the level of immortality and indestructibility. Strange martial vein, very strong. Du Xiaofu was surprised, and he secretly smacked his lips. Lu Limo had used the power of the martial vein, and at this level, she could still raise her cultivation by so much. This martial vein was extraordinary, and it was very terrifying. With this kind of martial vein, as long as she didn't encounter abnormal existences like Little Xingxing and Du Xiaoyao, she would be invincible among those of the same level. In an instant, Lu Limo attacked again, bringing along the sovereign strength. Her graceful figure was as fast as lightning, and with a mighty energy, the sacred weapon long sword in her hand swept out, and a pitch-black crack appeared in the void, and it instantly pierced towards the demonic ape's chest. Chi-la, the demonic ape's defense was instantly penetrated, and the mighty sovereign strength could suppress everything. The sword light was like thunder, and it was as fast as lightning. It pierced the scales on the demonic ape's chest, leaving a deep crack with faint traces of blood. However, the scales on the demonic ape's body weren't completely shattered, and the crack left by the sword light only lasted for a while before it slowly recovered. At the same time, Lu Limo's face changed. She didn't expect that her full-strength attack would have such a negligible effect on the demonic ape in front of her. She felt that something was wrong. Boom. However, it was too late. Lu Limo was unable to dodge the attack. The huge fist that was covered with dazzling grayish-white scales was like a meteorite as it slammed into her curvaceous body. Puffed. There was no turning back. The difference was too great. Blood spurted out from Lu Limo's red lips as the sovereign blood glowed and emitted energy waves. Her delicate body was sent flying like a kite with its string cut as the 9 divine rings above her head shattered inch by inch. She landed heavily on the ground, and the martial vein talisman on her body instantly dimmed. Bang bang. The ground trembled, and Lu Limo's body broke a towering tree, and she fell onto the ground, causing the ground to crack and dust to fly. Boom. The demonic ape's huge body soared through the sky, and it stretched out its claw, twisting the void as it tried to grab Lu Limo's body. Evil beast. A faint voice sounded, and a figure strangely appeared in the middle of the claw that was twisting the void. Instead of retreating, it charged forward and punched towards the claw. Boom. Bang bang. The earth trembled, and a few mountains were crushed, causing huge rocks to explode. Roar. Along with the demonic ape's roar that was heavily injured, the void trembled. The figure that suddenly appeared did not immediately attack the demonic ape, but went to the side of Lu Limo, who was on the ground. The one that suddenly made a move was naturally Du Xiaofu. Whether it was because Lu Limo was a human, or because he still had a grudge with the demonic ape, Du Xiaofu couldn't just stand by and watch. Lu Limo was covered in blood, and her body was covered in light. Her eyes were closed, and she seemed to have lost consciousness. Du Xiaofu narrowed his eyes and peered into his body. Then, His brows relaxed a little. Du Xiaofu's mind saw that although Lu Limo was heavily injured and unconscious, she was still alive. The demonic ape seemed to want to keep her alive. Roar! The demonic ape's huge body stood up, and its feet stepped on the ground like a mountain. Its palm was covered in blood, and there were cracks. Its fierce eyes were filled with a terrifying light, but there was also a hint of surprise. That overbearing aura just now made the demonic ape feel a sense of déjà vu, and an uneasy premonition crept up in its heart. When Zhong Yuan's gaze landed on the person who had just arrived, even though the person had changed his clothes and was no longer wearing a purple robe, when he clearly saw the familiar face with his head slightly lowered, his ferocious eyes were immediately filled with horror. His body trembled, and in the next instant, he turned around and fled. Still want to escape? It was too fast, and when the demonic ape turned around, the familiar figure had already appeared in front of it. That clear and resolute face, compared to the incomparably small body, made the demonic ape feel as if it had seen a ghost. Its eyes were filled with fear, and blood was still dripping from its huge hand. "Why is it you?" The demonic ape opened its mouth, and its huge body involuntarily took 2 steps back. It knew that even if they joined forces, they were not a match for the human in front of it. At this moment, it was simply not a match for the human in front of it. "We meet again. Why aren't you chasing after me?" Du Xiaofu said faintly, looking at the demonic ape's right hand that was dripping with blood. Last time, the demonic ape's right hand was shattered, but it was a saint beast and had recovered. "Human, we have experts here. If you dare to attack, you won't be able to escape." The demonic ape opened its mouth, and its fierce eyes were filled with fear. "Is that so?" Du Xiaofu stepped on the void, and his figure was tall and straight. Compared to him, his figure was small, but the invisible aura made the demonic ape feel suffocated. "Then, I'll finish you off as soon as possible." As Du Xiaofu's voice fell, his figure suddenly rushed out, and a golden light gushed out in the void, and the mysterious runes spread out like lightning. "Today and yesterday, I only updated once. I was delayed by something, and will continue to update more tomorrow. Please forgive me." Chapter 2306. Human, I'll fight you to the death. The dark ape roared, not holding back its cultivation at the peak of the early Saint Beast realm, causing the void to rumble and its aura to surge. Talisman runes erupted and brilliant light intertwined, forming a huge shadow of a ferocious ape. It was as if an ancient ape god had descended, overflowing with mighty pressure that swept towards Du Xiaofu. This seemed to be the dark ape's trump card, and its power was terrifying. As a demonic beast remnant from before the Dragon Phoenix tribulation, the dark ape's bloodline was absolutely powerful for it to be able to survive until now. Its cultivation was at the peak of the early Saint Beast realm, and at this moment, its battle prowess was comparable to that of the middle Saint realm experts of the 9 great families who had just stepped into the Saint realm. Du Xiaofu attacked, directly striking out with his palm, carrying the power of the sky-shaking wings. The golden talisman runes were like a great rock spreading its wings, emitting a dazzling light as it fiercely collided with the dark ape. This kind of collision was like the collision of mountains, and the momentum was vast and mighty. The impact was like the eruption of numerous volcanoes. Ding ding! But in an instant, the giant ape shadow was directly destroyed by the golden light, and the dark ape's huge beast body was once again pushed back. Du Xiaofu's figure rushed out, completely ignoring the vast and mighty energy shockwaves that swept out, turning a deaf ear to it. Boom! His body was covered in golden light, and his domineering aura shook the void. Du Xiaofu's golden-winged rock cultivation method was fully activated at this moment, carrying the domineering will of the golden-winged rock clan. Forming a hand seal, his right arm punched out, and his left palm struck out, accompanied by a vast and mighty aura, directly bombarding the dark ape's body. When Du Xiaofu first entered the danger zones, he had already forced the dark ape and the dark ferocious bird to flee. At this moment, Du Xiaofu had once again made great progress, reaching the peak of the early Saint realm. How could the dark ape still have the power to fight head-on? Du Xiaofu attacked, emitting a dazzling golden light, like a real rock descending. His domineering will was disdainfully sharp, and his divine power was astonishing, like a demon god. Bang bang! Du Xiaofu's attack had caused the Mang ape's body to explode. Its resplendent grayish-white scales immediately cracked open, and a mist of blood gushed out, following which the enormous beast's body collapsed head-on, crushing many trees and boulders. The ground shook and rumbled as if there was an earthquake. Golden light filled the sky. Du Xiaofu was like a shadow as he descended from the void. Along with the spread of the golden talisman, it was vaguely like a pair of golden wings flapping. Golden light bloomed all over the sky. The airflow whistled through the sky. The momentum was terrifying. Roar! The demonic ape was heavily injured and had yet to crawl to its feet. However, it seemed to have sensed something at this moment. It screeched and roared, and its ferocious eyes were filled with terror. Du Xiaofu swooped down, and behind him, there seemed to be a golden-winged rock descending, carrying the domineering will of the golden-winged rock race. This was the rock descending to the 9 heavens. Ow ow! The demonic ape roared angrily like thunder. Its aura erupted, and it was making a final struggle. Du Xiaofu swooped down, powerful and domineering. Like a descending rock, his domineering and terrifying aura overflowed the sky. He was powerful and dominating. Behind the resplendent golden light, there was an astonishing pressure that seemed to destroy everything. The surrounding heaven and earth trembled, and the aura swept through the sky, crushing everything as if it was crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. The demonic ape's ferocious eyes were filled with fear. It was suppressed like a hot knife through butter. Blood spurted out from its body, and its expression was filled with disbelief and shock. Rumble! At the same time, just as he swooped down, Du Xiaofu waved his hand. A supreme pressure spread out, and his palm was covered with a mysterious seal. It was like a golden-winged rock's shadow. Its entire body was golden and resplendent, and there were silver-yellow electric arcs. A monstrous pressure spread out from it, and with lightning and thunder, silver-yellow electric arcs suddenly erupted. Roar! Roar! All of a sudden, the roar of a dragon, a tiger, and a lion could be heard from Du Xiaofu's palm. It was accompanied by the explosion of a terrifying aura that caused the surrounding space to rumble and tremble. This monstrous pressure descended, containing a kind of pressure that all beasts could not resist. This kind of pressure came from the souls of all beasts, from their bloodlines. It was as if the strongest of all beasts had descended, wanting to make all beasts submit, and it was difficult for them to resist. This terrifying pressure made the demonic ape's beast soul tremble. Its entire body trembled, and it was completely suppressed. Chila! In an instant, Du Xiaofu's seal fell, and with the roar of a dragon, a phoenix, a lion, and a tiger, it fell directly into the demonic ape's forehead. The strange golden seal, accompanied by the supreme pressure of all beasts, turned into a ball of golden light and disappeared into the demonic ape's forehead. At the same time, Du Xiaofu's hand seals formed one after another, and mysterious runes appeared on his body. As Du Xiaofu's hand seals formed, extremely strange rays of light, accompanied by the terrifying supreme pressure, fell in succession between the demonic ape's eyebrows. The demonic ape's huge, fierce eyes closed involuntarily. At this moment, in the demonic ape's mind, its beast soul was constantly roaring. Its beast soul was like a miniature version of its original body, and it was resisting with all its strength. Evil beast, behave. Stop! Du Xiaofu's voice, with a kind of pressure, resounded in the demonic ape's mind. Dazzling golden light burst out, and like the shadow of a golden-winged rock, a mighty primordial spirit electric arc wreaked havoc, and a monstrous supreme pressure swept out, directly imprisoning the demonic ape's beast soul. The demonic ape's beast soul struggled violently, roaring continuously, but at this moment, it was unable to break free at all. The demonic ape's cultivation was at the peak of the initial stage of the Saint Beast realm, and its beast soul was very powerful. But the demonic ape encountered Du Xiaofu. With Du Xiaofu's abnormal primordial spirit power and the blood soul seal, which specialized in suppressing beast souls. Even 10 demonic ape beast souls would not be able to resist. Beast controlling technique? Yes. Du Xiaofu's hand seals continued to form, and a dazzling golden ray of light sank into the demonic ape's forehead. This was the blood soul seal. Du Xiaofu was using the beast controlling technique to keep the demonic ape alive. The beast controlling technique could be used to subdue it. More importantly, Du Xiaofu wanted to know the origin of the mysterious bone that the demonic ape, the ferocious bird, and the big fish had fought over. Roar. In the demonic ape's mind, the roars of dragons, tigers, and lions reverberated. Under the monstrous pressure, the shadow of the golden-winged rock turned into a blazing golden ray of light and instantly entered the demonic ape's beast soul. This was a mighty suppression, incomparably powerful, and also a natural suppression. The demonic ape beast soul, after struggling for a while, gradually began to be tamed, and after a while, it completely stopped struggling. Huff! Du Xiaofu exhaled a mouthful of turbid air, and his expression relaxed. This was the first time Du Xiaofu had used the beast-controlling technique on a Saint Beast Realm demon beast. Fortunately, under the absolute suppression of the primordial spirit power, everything was very successful. Not long after, the demonic ape's closed eyes opened, and the ferocious light in its eyes quietly disappeared, and it became extremely docile. After its huge body stood up, it turned to about 10 feet in size, and its body was dripping with blood, but it was extremely respectful to Du Xiaofu, and bowed its head. Master, Master, why are you here? Du Xiaofu withdrew his aura and looked at the demonic ape and asked. Using the beast-controlling technique to control a demon beast expert at the peak of the early stage of the Saint Beast realm, at this moment, Du Xiaofu felt a sense of accomplishment in his heart. It seemed that he could try more in the future. The few of us were originally looking for the whereabouts of our master, wanting to take back that treasure. Later on, we heard that the young Supreme Lu Limo had appeared nearby. The few of us wanted to capture Lu Limo in exchange for some treasures with the humans. Pai Yuan said, "You guys." Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows. It seemed that the demonic ape was not alone in the vicinity, and it seemed that it was not just the ferocious bird. Otherwise, it would not dare to search for him. After we escaped last time, we informed Master Lei Yong, and now Master Lei Yong is leading the Ground Wolf, Ice Toad, and Fierce Eagle to look for Master in all directions. It was purely a coincidence that we found the young Supreme Lu Limo. Under the beast-controlling technique, the demonic ape did not hide anything. Then from the demonic ape, Du Xiaofu learned that Lei Yong was already at the late stage of the Saint Beast realm. The Ground Wolf, Fierce Eagle, and the demonic ape were not much different. They were all at the peak of the early stage of the Saint Beast realm. Fierce Eagle was the ferocious bird that attacked together with the demonic ape. On the other hand, Ice Toad was at the middle stage of the Saint Beast realm. What surprised Du Xiaofu was that Lei Yong, the demonic ape, and the others were actually semi-rogue cultivators in this fierce land. Although they had stepped into the Saint Beast realm, they had almost no status in the Beast Alliance and were unwilling to rely on the Beast Alliance, so they gathered together. The Beast Alliance would not easily touch them, and humans would not provoke them. Chapter 2307. Translator. H2DH2 Mr. Du Xiaofu's eyes twitched. He hadn't expected so many Saint Beasts to be searching for him. He wasn't afraid of the early and middle Saint Beasts, but if he encountered the late Saint Beast Lei Yong, he would be in big trouble. What is that half of the bone? Du Xiaofu looked at Xiao Yuan and asked. This was the reason why he had placed the blood soul seal on Xiao Yuan. He wanted to know the origin of that half of the bone. It's said to be a supreme treasure. Anyone who can comprehend it can obtain endless benefits. That Fei Yu obtained that supreme treasure, and that's why its strength soared in such a short time and stepped into the Saint Beast realm. Before, I could crush it with a finger, Xiao Yuan said. Meng Yuan spoke. However, he was not certain about the origin of the half-secret bone. All he said was that Fei Yu might know more about it. He knew that Xiao Yuan and Lai Jiao had joined forces to obtain that half of the bone and make Fei Yu reveal the secret of the supreme treasure, but in the end, there was an unforeseen event. Hearing this, Du Xiaofu frowned. That Fei should be that big fish. After obtaining that half of the secret bone, it had actually stepped into the Saint Realm, and it didn't take long for it to be able to fight against the demonic ape. It was enough to show that that half of the secret bone was indeed a treasure. Du Xiaofu had always felt a kind of fluctuation from that half of the bone, but he didn't know the secret and couldn't comprehend it. If Master can find Fei Yu, you should know everything. Lord Lei Yong, Li Diao, we are also searching for Fei Yu's whereabouts. We have agreed on a method of contact. Whoever sees Fei Yu and Master should immediately notify us, Xiao Yuan said. What? Du Xiaofu's expression changed. He looked at Xiao Yuan and said, You just notified Lei Yong and the others? Yes. Xiao Yuan nodded. He had already secretly notified them. Du Xiaofu was stunned. He didn't fear Li Diao or Li Diao, but he couldn't help but be wary of Lei Yong. It was better to avoid him. There are experts coming. Human Saint Realm. Suddenly, Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows and released his consciousness. He originally wanted to see if there were any traces of Lei Yong and the others, but he didn't discover the aura of a human Saint Realm expert rapidly approaching. Come in quickly. Du Xiaofu didn't have time to hesitate. He summoned the desolate, ancient space from his forehead. Misty chi fluctuated, allowing the demonic ape to enter the desolate, ancient space, giving it time to heal. As Du Xiaofu kept the ancient, desolate space, a crack seemed to have been torn open in the void. A figure instantly descended and appeared in the collapsed and messy void. When this figure descended, the surrounding void trembled slightly, and the formless aura was terrifying. It was an old man with shoulder-length hair that was black and white in color. He wore a light-colored robe and had a thin figure. His eyes were bright and emitted a frightening light. He scanned the surroundings, and his gaze immediately fell on Du Xiaofu. An obscure and powerful aura enveloped Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu didn't reveal any traces and suppressed his aura to that of a martial Saint Realm expert. His body trembled as if he couldn't withstand the mighty aura of this Saint Realm expert. Du Xiaofu's concealment of his cultivation was already difficult for others to detect. After cultivating the disguised divine technique, it was even easier for Du Xiaofu to conceal his true cultivation. Unless one's strength was far greater than his, it would be difficult to detect any clues. However, the old man's cultivation couldn't escape Du Xiaofu's perception. He was at the middle stage of the Saint Realm, similar to Feng Jin of the distant Sky Flame Phoenix clan. The strength of a martial Saint Realm expert didn't attract the attention of the Saint Realm expert. The old man's figure then landed in front of Lu Limo, who had fainted on the ground. He probed with his consciousness, and his expression turned serious. Whoosh! The sound of wind breaking could be heard from afar. A young figure descended, accompanied by an extraordinary aura. He instantly appeared beside the old man. The young man was tall and thin, and looked to be in his 30s. He wore a tight robe and a cloak with golden silk patterns. He was quite handsome. When he saw Lu Limo, his expression changed and he asked, Grandfather, what happened to Limo? Her injuries are too serious, but her life isn't in danger. The old man stood up and handed Lu Limo over to the young man. He then looked at Du Xiaofu in the distance and asked, What did you see? A huge ferocious ape fought with her. She was no match for it, and I thought she was dead. However, the ferocious ape seemed to be looking for someone and suddenly left. Du Xiaofu was trembling with fear. His gaze trembled as if there was still lingering fear in his heart. The old man looked at Du Xiaofu as if he could see through Du Xiaofu. He waved his hand and grabbed Lu Limo's extraordinary saint weapon that had fallen to the side. He then continued to ask Du Xiaofu, Then why are you here? I entered the Beast Alliance's territory with a group of people to seek some opportunities. However, I was the only one left in the end. Du Xiaofu replied as he pretended to be trembling. At this moment, it seemed that the two people in front of him knew Lu Limo, and their relationship wasn't shallow. They should be from the human race here. The old man stared at Du Xiaofu as if he couldn't see anything wrong with him. Grandfather, there's no one else here. Why don't we kill this brat? Now that Limo is heavily injured, it's my chance. By then, she won't have anything to say. The young man transmitted his voice to the old man. However, this transmission couldn't escape Du Xiaofu's spiritual sense. A cold light flashed in Du Xiaofu's eyes. He had met this young man by chance and had no enmity with him. However, this guy was actually so vicious. It seemed like he wasn't a good person. Du Xiaofu was secretly on alert. As long as the old man dared to make a move, he wouldn't hold back either. After all, this old man and young man weren't good people either. The old man looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "This is the territory of the Beast Alliance. It's not a place where you can enter with your strength. Leave quickly." As soon as he finished speaking, the old man turned to the young man and said, "Yu Ming, let's go. We'll talk when we get back." The young man seemed to be worried. He looked at Du Xiaofu and continued to transmit his voice to the old man. "Grandfather, why don't you kill this brat? This is the territory of the Beast Alliance. With this brat's strength, I'm afraid he won't be able to return. He'll still die," the old man replied. "Old man, you're so vicious to kill without spilling blood." The old man's cultivation wasn't weak. If he had transmitted his voice earlier, Du Xiaofu definitely wouldn't have dared to spy on him. However, the old man didn't seem to care about Du Xiaofu at all. He only lowered his voice. Naturally, such a voice couldn't escape Du Xiaofu's ears. Du Xiaofu originally thought that the old man didn't want to kill him because he was from the human race. However, he didn't expect the old man to have such an idea. He was just too lazy to kill without spilling blood. He wouldn't be any less vicious than the young man. There's one more update coming soon. Chapter 2308. This grandfather-grandchild pair was truly vicious. The youth looked at Du Xiaofu, as if thinking about something. Then, he said, "Do you know of my Yu family?" I do. Du Xiaofu didn't leave any traces in his heart. His expression was one of reverence. Based on the grandfather-grandchild pair's cultivation, the Yu family definitely had a high status in the human race. They were definitely a large family. This is the Beast Alliance's territory. With your cultivation, you can't leave this place. Follow me as a follower. I'll take you out of here, Yu Ming said to Du Xiaofu. His eyes were smiling, and he seemed extremely gentle. Really? That's great. Du Xiaofu's face lit up with excitement. It was as if he'd received a great opportunity. But how could Du Xiaofu not know the reason? This grandfather-grandchild pair seemed to have made some sort of arrangement. Yu Ming was clearly afraid that he wouldn't die in the Beast Alliance, or that he would have other uses. So, he brought him along just in case. That pair of vicious bastards. Du Xiaofu sneered inwardly. Let's see who plays who to death first. It just so happened that Lei Yong and the others were searching for him. If they found him, let's see who would be the unlucky one first. Lu Limo had fallen into the grandfather-grandchild pair's hands. Although they'd only met by chance, and because of Lu Limo, he'd been warned by the tomboy, Du Xiaofu still didn't feel at ease. At least he could look after her. There are Beast Region experts nearby. Let's go first. The old man didn't object to Yu Ming's arrangement. Several hand seals condensed on Lu Limo's body. Then he stuffed several expensive medicinal pills into her mouth. Then, he tore through the void and left with the three of them. Du Xiaofu couldn't help but be on guard at all times when he was with the grandfather-grandchild pair. Du Xiaofu wasn't afraid of Yu Ming, but he didn't dare be careless with the old man from the Yu family. He didn't want to fail miserably. Several hours later, the void was torn apart as several people appeared in the void above a city. Greetings, Elder Yu. In the city, many figures flew out and bowed respectfully. In the lead was a middle-aged man who stepped into the void. His figure was tall and imposing, and his eyes were deep. Radiance suffused the air around him, and he wore a battle armor that emitted a faint light. It surrounded his body, and his aura was extraordinary. Prepare to return to the temple. Yu Bol spoke. His eyes were bright, and there was a faint fluctuation of light. Elder Yu, the arrangements have been made. The people from the Lu family have also arrived, the armored middle-aged man said. The Lu family? Yu Bol's eyes flickered slightly as he said, Go ahead. Tell them that the person has been found, but he was severely injured. However, his life is not in danger. Yes. The middle-aged man looked at the unconscious Lu Limo who was in Yu Ming's arms. He turned around and entered the city. Du Xiaofu looked around, then followed Yu Bol and Yu Ming, the grandfather and grandson pair, into the city. He saw a group of people. The first one was an old man, who looked very old, but his eyes were full of spirit. He was extremely humble before you, Bowl, and had already bowed from afar. Elder Lu, Limo was severely injured by a Saint Plain cultivator of the Beast Alliance. When my grandfather and I arrived, it was already too late. Fortunately, her life is not in danger. Yu Ming was very polite before the old man with a respectful expression. Thank you, Elder Yu. Thank you, young Master Yu Ming. On behalf of the Lu family, I thank you for your kindness. I will never forget it. The old man from the Lu family bowed. A woman from the Lu family stepped forward and took Lu Limo, who was in Yu Ming's arms. When the woman left his arms, Yu Ming felt a little reluctant to part with her. No need to be so polite. Yu Ming found Limo first. In order to save Limo, he was severely injured. Take them back to the temple to heal, Yu Bol said to the old man from the Lu family. Yu Bol said to the elder from the Lu clan. His gaze landed on Du Xiaofu, whether intentionally or not. A formless aura landed on Du Xiaofu's body. If he were an ordinary martial venerable, he would have gone limp on the spot. Du Xiaofu knew that the old man from the Yu family was secretly warning him not to speak too much. Subconsciously, his body trembled on purpose. Hearing this, the old man from the Lu family looked at Yu Ming and bowed deeply. He said, Thank you, young Master Yu Ming. I will always remember your kindness. Elder Lu, you can't do that. This is my duty. Unfortunately, my cultivation is not enough and I was unable to kill that Saint Beast cultivator of the Beast Alliance. Fortunately, my grandfather arrived in time and scared that evil creature away. Cough, cough. As he spoke, Yu Ming coughed. His face was slightly pale. Young Master Yu Ming, you are too polite. With your talent, it is only a matter of time before you enter the Saint Plane. The future of the human race will also depend on you, young Master Yu Ming, the old man from the Lu family said. What a shameless pair of grandfather and grandson. Du Xiaofu stood quietly. He had really broadened his horizons. He had never seen anyone more shameless than this pair of grandfather and grandson. When he arrived, it was already calm and peaceful. He was the one who saved Lu Limo. However, this old man spoke as if it was true. It was his grandson, Yu Ming, who saved Lu Limo and was severely injured. He even said it so calmly. You are also injured. Take this pill. It should be able to increase your cultivation. Seeing Du Xiaofu in a daze, Yu Ming had a smile on his face as he handed a pill to Du Xiaofu out of concern. However, there was an obvious warning in that smile. This was a combination of kindness and coercion. Thank you, young Master Yu Ming. Du Xiaofu was pleasantly surprised. He muttered to himself, Let's see what this pair of grandfather and grandson are up to. This young man is... Only then did the old man from the Lu clan notice Du Xiaofu and sized him up in surprise. He entered the Beast Alliance's territory with some people to look for opportunities. In the end, he was the only one left. When Limo encountered the Beast Alliance's Sacred Beast Realm expert, he was also affected. After my grandfather and I saved Limo, we brought him back with us, Yu Ming said. I see, the old man from the Lu clan said, and did not pay much attention to it. These two bastards. At this moment, Du Xiaofu was cursing in his heart. This Yu Ming was clearly using him as a witness. Now, he had confirmed that it was him and his granddaughter who had saved Lu Limo. Du Xiaofu's desperate attempt to save Lu Limo had also become a reality. All of this was witnessed by someone else. It was not what the two of them had said. No wonder this Yu Ming wanted to bring him back. After a while, a large ship appeared in the sky. It was simple and modeled. Ancient runes fluctuated as if there were two wings on both sides of the ship. Du Xiaofu followed Yu Bol, Yu Ming, and the people from the Lu clan onto the ship. The ship broke through the sky at an extremely fast speed. On the ship, there were people from the Lu clan taking care of Lu Limo. Their expressions were solemn and anxious. Du Xiaofu sat on the bed with a faint expression on his face. In his heart, Du Xiaofu was secretly observing and pondering. With Lu Limo's talent, her position in the clan must be extraordinary. However, it seemed that the Lu clan's position was not as high as the Yu clan's. The old man from the Lu clan was only at the Sage-to-be realm. It seemed that the human clan in the fearsome grounds was not peaceful. Kid, follow me from now on. You can say what you should, but don't say what you shouldn't say. There will be benefits for you. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless." Suddenly, Yu Ming transmitted a message to Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu raised his head. At the front of the ship, Yu Ming was looking at him with an absolute warning. Du Xiaofu didn't leave any traces. He sneered in his heart. He was afraid that after this period of time, once the grandfather and grandson achieved their goal, with the grandfather and grandson's personality, they wouldn't let him live. If it was someone else, the result would have been predetermined. However, Du Xiaofu didn't care. Anyway, there was nothing to do. The Lei Yang was still nearby. He could continue to follow the Yu clan. If he encountered the Lei Yang, there would be a scapegoat. At the same time, he could also learn more about the human clan in the fearsome grounds. As for whether Yu Ming wanted to deal with him, Du Xiaofu wasn't afraid. Even if the old man, Yu Bol, made a move, he wouldn't care. After an entire day, the area ahead was lush with majestic mountains. The energy of heaven and earth became denser and denser, surrounding the void. This kind of place was very vast. As the big ship crossed the void, Du Xiaofu was also looking around curiously. Along the way, he discovered many strange sights and ancient ruins. There were living creatures everywhere, as well as spiritual birds and strange beasts. It was like a paradise on earth. Today's third update is complete. Readers, rest early. Chapter 2309. After a while, countless majestic mountains appeared in front of them. There were ancient buildings everywhere, carved with the passage of time. The ship flew above. Occasionally, the auras of powerful cultivators would rush up from below. They seemed to confirm the identities of the people on the ship and immediately disappeared. Not long after, the ship landed in a huge city. The surrounding mountains were like giant dragons circling around. The energy of heaven and earth was rich, and an ancient aura pervaded the air. The city was bustling with activity. There was a bustling crowd in the distance, and many powerful auras fluctuated. It was very prosperous. Du Xiaofu secretly sized up the people here. The average cultivation level of the people here was much higher than that of the outside Kyushu. It seemed that all of this had something to do with the energy of heaven and earth. Before the eternal tomb opened, the energy of heaven and earth in Kyushu was very scarce and could not be compared to here. However, if one cultivated here, the rich energy of heaven and earth would allow one to achieve twice the results with half the effort. Everyone landed. Some of the powerful cultivators seemed to have been waiting for a long time. They looked very nervous. Then, the elder of the Yu family, Yu Ming, the elder of the Lu family, Lu Limo, and the others left again and disappeared. Then, some people came to receive Du Xiaofu. Their auras were very powerful. The person in front was at the domain realm. He was quite young, not even 40 years old. "Come back to the Yu family with me," the middle-aged leader of the group, who was at the domain realm, said and led Du Xiaofu away. Du Xiaofu did not stay in the huge city for long. He continued on his way. However, it did not take long. In less than an hour, they arrived at the Yu family. Rather than calling it the Yu family, it was more like a vast land of mountains. It was like a fairyland. The mountains stood tall and majestic, and the clouds were faintly discernible. It was overflowing with light and color, and the clouds were steaming with rosy clouds. It was incomparably magnificent. This was the Yu family. There were strange flowers and plants everywhere, as well as spiritual birds and beasts. There was also a vast land of spirit medicine. "This is the Yu clan," said the middle-aged man, "the best place for cultivation among the human race. To be able to enter this place is the greatest blessing of your life." His eyes were cold and proud as he introduced the Yu clan to Du Xiaofu. "Where are you taking me?" Du Xiaofu asked. Although this place was extraordinary, what else had he not seen before? He was only surprised and curious, and did not pay much attention to it. "That's where the followers live." The middle-aged man pointed ahead. On top of a huge mountain, there was a majestic building. It was so tall that it looked like it was suspended in midair. Du Xiaofu followed the middle-aged man and the others up the mountain. The surroundings were filled with spirit qi, and the surrounding mountain peaks were connected. Multicolored light filled the air. Du Xiaofu was arranged to stay in a secluded valley on the mountain. The middle-aged man told him that he absolutely could not run around, and that Yu Ming would make arrangements for him when the time came. After that, he left. Du Xiaofu did not mind. He walked around outside the door and saw that there were people waiting in the distance. He returned to his room, sat down cross-legged, and closed his eyes to rest. This place should be an important place for the human tribe. Du Xiaofu reckoned that no matter how bold Lei Yang and the others were, they would not dare to come here easily. For the human tribe to be able to exist in this place, and to have such a fairyland-like place for cultivation, there should be top experts guarding this place. Otherwise, the Beast Alliance would have attacked long ago. After a while, Du Xiaofu simply continued to comprehend the three sword moves. This was a kind of stubbornness, and he did not believe that he could not comprehend them thoroughly. Time passed like sand, and no one bothered about Du Xiaofu. Just like that, 2 days passed by quietly. After 2 days, Du Xiaofu felt that someone was coming and woke up. There were 2 ladies. The older one looked to be around 26 or 27 years old. She was beautiful and had a seductive figure. The younger one was probably less than 20 years old. She had a youthful look on her face, and her hair was tied up in a ponytail. She was tall and wore a long dress, but it could not hide her graceful curves. "Are you the person that young Master Yu Ming brought back?" The younger lady looked at Du Xiaofu and asked.
Yes.
Du Xiaofu nodded. The aura of these 2 ladies were not weak. The older lady was at the domain realm, while the younger one had the aura of a nirvana sovereign. She was a junior sovereign. "Did you see it with your own eyes? Did young Master Yu Ming risk his life to save Sister Liemo?" The tall lady asked Du Xiaofu. "I was scared silly at that time. That ferocious ape was too strong." Du Xiaofu said without giving a direct answer. He did not know who these 2 ladies were. They might have been sent by the Yu family to probe him. "You better answer us honestly." The older lady's eyes shot a glare, and an invisible aura collapsed on Du Xiaofu's body. Her delicate face was ashen. "Woman, you are too fierce," Du Xiaofu said. He seemed to be intimidated and took 2 steps back. He seemed to be cowering and trembling. "Sister Hongyu, let me ask him." Seeing this, the younger lady said. She looked at Du Xiaofu with a gentle gaze and asked, "Don't be afraid. Sister Hongyu is not fierce. We just want to know if you saw young Master Yu Ming save Sister Liemo with your own eyes. Is this important?" Du Xiaofu asked. "Ladies, time is up. You should leave quickly. Otherwise, I won't be able to explain myself." At this moment, someone came. It was a middle-aged man with a nervous expression. Du Xiaofu recognized this man. This middle-aged man was one of the people who brought him here. He was from the Yu family. "All right." After hesitating for a moment, the 2 ladies looked at Du Xiaofu and left. "Can I go down and familiarize myself with the environment?" Du Xiaofu asked the middle-aged man. "Don't run around. Otherwise, you will have to bear the consequences." The middle-aged man replied and ignored Du Xiaofu. It was not easy for someone to come over, but after asking a few questions, they immediately left. Du Xiaofu felt rather helpless. "I can't stay here forever. I have to find a way to leave." Du Xiaofu muttered in his heart. He had already wasted 3 days. He couldn't stay here forever. He entered this ominous place to look for opportunities. "I have to find a way to leave after nightfall." Du Xiaofu decided that he had to find a way to leave after nightfall. He couldn't stay here forever. However, Du Xiaofu's idea didn't come true. Just as dusk fell, someone came. It was the middle-aged man who led Du Xiaofu here 2 days ago. He was a domain realm expert. "Come with me. There is a lord who wants to see you," the middle-aged man said, and was about to lead Du Xiaofu away. Du Xiaofu's eyes moved slightly, but he didn't ask anything. He faintly felt that this matter wasn't simple. Du Xiaofu followed the middle-aged man and flew across the void. After a while, they arrived at a towering cliff. There was a flickering light and several figures were already waiting there. When Du Xiaofu landed, he saw that the middle-aged man who led Hongyu and the 2 ladies during the day was among them. Chapter 23:10. "Elder, I've brought him here," said the middle-aged man. He was very respectful towards an old man in his 50s. The old man was dressed in decent clothes, and his aura was very powerful. He had reached the Overlord realm, and his bearing was extraordinary as well. Is it him? The old man looked at Du Xiaofu, but he only glanced at him indifferently. Elder, Lord Yuming brought him back, replied the middle-aged man. Then it's good that they're all here. There's no point in keeping traitors alive, said the old man indifferently. An indifferent voice came out of the old man's mouth, and a hand seal immediately slapped on the chest of the middle-aged man that Du Xiaofu had seen during the day. Bang! Before the middle-aged man could react, or even understand what had happened, a muffled sound rang out from his chest. His body was sent flying, shattering in the air as he fell off the cliff. There's no point in keeping you alive. At the same time, a palm print landed on Du Xiaofu's chest. Du Xiaofu's body was directly sent flying, and he fell down the cliff. Don't tell anyone about this. If anyone dares to say anything, they'll end up like them, said the old man as he left with several people. The cliff was empty, and there was dim starlight. Everything was calm, as if nothing had happened at all. Light filled the ancient courtyard. Yuming stared at the sky as his eyes shone. The old man appeared and landed beside Yuming. He said, "It's all been dealt with. That kid shouldn't have said anything. However, leaving him alive will only lead to trouble in the future. It's better to deal with him as soon as possible. It's just a small matter. I'll have to trouble fourth uncle to deal with it personally. Thank you for your hard work," said Yuming. "It's no trouble at all. It's only natural for me to deal with those traitors in the clan," said the old man with a smile. The Liu clan sent people to investigate in secret. Glassimo probably doesn't believe it. Otherwise, why would she make such a request? Yuming lifted his eyes slightly and looked into the void as he said softly, "That girl is destined to become a member of our Yu clan. In the future, our Yu clan will definitely advance further. The Yu clan will definitely prosper in your hands. Fourth uncle congratulates nephew Ming first." The 50-year-old old man's face was full of smiles. Everything had been settled. In the future, the Yu clan would be the leader of the human clan. "Fourth uncle, you're being too serious. The future of the Yu clan rests on the shoulders of the patriarchs. As a member of the Yu clan, the blood of the Yu clan flows in my veins. Naturally, I will shoulder the responsibility of the Yu clan," Yuming said, his eyes glowing. Everything was set in stone. This time, Lu Limo had nothing to say. Soon, she would fall into his arms. At that time, he would be able to obtain both wealth and beauty. Thinking of this, Yuming couldn't help but feel extremely comfortable in his heart, and a smile appeared on his handsome face. At this moment, Du Xiaofu was very displeased. Extremely displeased. Even if Du Xiaofu had let his guard down and stood there without fighting back, it was impossible for a puny Overlord realm cultivator to cause any harm to him. However, this was the territory of the Yu clan. Du Xiaofu had no idea how many saints the Yu clan had. However, given the Yu clan's status in the human clan, Du Xiaofu estimated that Yu Bol definitely wasn't the only saint in the Yu clan. Once he made a move and exposed his strength, it was definitely not a wise decision to make since he was unfamiliar with this place. As such, Du Xiaofu took advantage of the Overlord Realm Cultivator's attack and fell off the cliff. Faint golden light surged, and his body silently disappeared from the cliff. This was Du Xiaoyao's innate ability of the Redbone Horse Monkey. Du Xiaofu relied on this ability to move unhindered underground. After several hours, when he felt that he had left the Yu clan's territory, Du Xiaofu emerged from the ground. Chi La! A crack appeared on the ground as a golden ray of light shot out. Du Xiaofu's figure appeared, and the crack in the ground mysteriously disappeared. The moon was bright and the stars were sparse. The surrounding mountain ranges were continuous, and towering trees were densely packed. The night wind whistled, and specks of starlight left behind mottled traces among the lush leaves and branches. Du Xiaofu's face darkened slightly, and a faint cold light flashed through his eyes. To Du Xiaofu, the Yu clan was making a move against him. Originally, Du Xiaofu didn't want to participate in the Yu clan's actions as long as they didn't go overboard, or if he didn't see it with his own eyes. It had nothing to do with him at all. A great calamity was about to befall the outside world, and even the desolate nation's disciples couldn't protect themselves. Why would Du Xiaofu participate in this matter? With his current cultivation and strength, Du Xiaofu didn't even have the strength to provoke the people here. The Beast Alliance had already provoked enough powerful enemies. However, it was different now. The Yu clan's grandfather and granddaughter had secretly schemed against him in the beginning, and now they actually made a move directly. They were vicious and merciless. If he was just a little bit weaker, he would probably have suffered a calamity. After provoking them time and time again, Du Xiaofu was already enraged, and his bottom line had been crossed. Yu clan, let's slowly settle this score, Du Xiaofu said softly in his heart. This score had to be settled clearly. He couldn't be indifferent after being schemed against by others time and time again. Du Xiaofu's consciousness entered the desolate ancient space. Ouyang Shuang, Dai Xingyu, Qing Wan, and Little Qing were all fine now. After consuming the sacred elixirs, they seemed to have entered the stage of breaking through again. Du Xiaofu didn't disturb them. He didn't know where he was and wasn't familiar with the place. Using his consciousness to probe, he found that there were signs of human habitation nearby. Du Xiaofu discovered something. There were signs of human habitation a few hundred miles away. Whoosh! Du Xiaofu's figure disappeared into the deep forest. After a while, a village appeared on a flatland among the mountains. The mottled buildings were built along the mountain, and in the dark night, it looked peaceful and serene. A woo! A demonic beast roared, and in the dark night, a few pairs of scarlet eyes appeared. It was a few wolf-shaped and tiger-shaped demonic beasts that were about 10 feet in size. They were about to pounce on Du Xiaofu. However, these demonic beasts did not have high cultivations. They could only be considered low-ranked demonic beasts. They seemed to be guarding this village. Although Du Xiaofu had completely withdrawn his aura, it only lasted for an instant. When those demonic beasts looked at Du Xiaofu, they suddenly trembled. Fear appeared in their eyes as they involuntarily retreated. Don't move. The roars of these demonic beasts startled the people in the village. Many figures immediately appeared. They looked somewhat nervous as they shouted at those demonic beasts to stop. It's a human. Who are you? Someone discovered that Du Xiaofu was alone. When they saw Du Xiaofu's attire, their nervous expressions immediately calmed down. I'm lost. I don't know where this place is. Du Xiaofu replied as he swept his gaze across them. These figures were all extremely muscular, and their cultivation levels were not high. They had not even reached the martial emperor realm. However, there was a tall and straight youth. He was young and looked to be 14 or 15 years old. He hid behind the crowd and secretly sized them up. His cultivation level was at the peak of the martial lord realm and was about to reach the martial emperor realm. His talent was not bad. He seems to be injured. Was he attacked by a demonic beast? The youth sized up Du Xiaofu and stepped forward. Du Xiaofu had not changed out of his tight clothes. When he fought with Feng Jin and the others, his clothes had been torn. At this moment, he looked ragged and in a sorry state, as if he had been injured. Young man, quickly enter the village to heal your injuries, a middle-aged man spoke. He was dressed in plain clothes and short boots. He was amiable and had a simple gaze. Du Xiaofu had already sized up these people. This should be a simple village. He could enter the village to understand the situation here. Thank you, everyone. Du Xiaofu nodded and entered the village with these people. It's so strange. There seems to be something wrong with these demonic beasts today. Someone discovered something strange. The demonic beasts outside the village seemed to be very abnormal today. They did not dare to roar anymore and had long prostrated themselves at the back. They did not even dare to raise their heads. Their bodies were trembling for no reason. The demonic beasts in the village were the same. They all quieted down. However, these villagers did not pay much attention to it. They looked around and did not find anything special. The lights in the village gradually brightened up. There were small bridges and flowing water inside. The courtyard was densely packed, but it was not crowded. Some old, weak, women, and children began to walk out. There were also some youths. Some of them were quite talented. These people looked at Du Xiaofu nervously. Then, they became curious. It's fine. It's not those people. Go back and rest. A middle-aged man who occasionally poked his head out of the courtyard said, indicating for everyone to go back to their houses to rest. Du Xiaofu was a little surprised. It seemed that the people in this village were very nervous, as if they were worried about something. However, these villagers were indeed very simple. Every one of them was very kind. The young man who had just found Du Xiaofu injured took the initiative to ask Du Xiaofu to go to his house. His grandfather was the village chief of this village. His cultivation was also the strongest. He could help Du Xiaofu heal his injuries. Du Xiaofu nodded and learned that the young man was called Lin Feng. This was the Lin village. Most of the people in this village also had the surname Lin. There was an old courtyard with a wall piled up with huge stones at the entrance. The building was simple, but it had a kind of heaviness and was very warm. It gave Du Xiaofu a feeling that this was a real paradise. Young man, what kind of demonic beast did you encounter? Are your injuries serious? How did you get lost and come here? An old man with a white beard appeared. He was dressed in coarse clothes and looked very old. He came to check on Du Xiaofu's injuries. The old man's cultivation could not escape Du Xiaofu's arrangement. He was in the martial emperor realm. I didn't see it clearly. Fortunately, I escaped quickly. My injuries are not serious. I just got lost in a panic and came here. Thank you for saving me. Du Xiaofu nodded slightly to express his gratitude to these villagers. Everyone, go back. I want to check on this young man's injuries. The old man looked at Du Xiaofu and said, Yes, village chief. The old man had a high prestige. He was the village chief of this village. The villagers who had followed him here left immediately. The young man, Lin Feng, also left the small hall. Chapter 23:11. Translator. H2H2 Mr. Young Man. I've lived for 100 years and have seen many people. I know you're not an ordinary person, nor do you look like a ferocious person. I only hope that you don't affect the villagers of the Lin family village. We stand aloof from worldly affairs and have never done anything outrageous, the old man said to Du Xiaofu when only the two of them were left in the small hall. Village chief, you're being too serious. I'm really lost. I'm just looking for a place to settle down and ask about some things. I don't have any ill intentions, Du Xiaofu replied. This old village chief had rather sharp eyes. That's for the best. If there's anything you need to ask, I'll definitely tell you if I know, the old man said kindly. Then, Du Xiaofu found out some things about this place from the old village chief. In this fearsome land, the remaining humans lived and flourished in the east. The Beast Alliance controlled most of the areas here. The remaining areas were dangerous and fearsome. Very few people dared to set foot in them. Many powerful creatures would also die in them, but some people had obtained great opportunities. There was a divine temple among the humans, which was made up of many great clans. Every once in a while, the great clans would recommend a person to oversee the divine temple and become the human emperor. He would lead the humans to resist the Beast Alliance and lead the humans to flourish. It was said that the divine temple contained all the secrets of the human race. There were many insights left behind by the human race's ancestors. It was a place that every human disciple dreamed of entering. Unfortunately, only supreme prodigies could enter that place. Ordinary people did not even have the right to get close. The divine temple of the human race. Du Xiaofu was moved. The humans here had reproduced and flourished before the great dragon phoenix tribulation. This place was isolated from the rest of the world. The things left behind by the human race's ancestors were definitely not simple. It had been cut off from the outside world. If he had the chance to comprehend them, he would definitely benefit greatly. Du Xiaofu also heard about the Yu family from the old village chief. The Yu family was one of the great clans of the human race, but they were not the only one. There were other great clans that could keep them in check, but the Yu family's influence was very strong. At the mention of Yu family, the old village chief's kind and benevolent eyes glowed with a bit of redness, but it soon disappeared. Head east for 30,000 li. After passing through a large city, you'll reach the sacred palace. Head west for 10,000 li, and you'll reach Li City. Head north for 20,000 li, and you'll reach Chuan City. Head south for 15,000 li, and you'll reach Hung City. Young man, leave after you've fully recovered. There are many demonic beasts on the road and many dangerous places. Although you're extraordinary, you still have to pay attention to your safety, the old village chief said to Du Xiaofu. In the end, He left behind a royal-grade healing pill and arranged for Du Xiaofu to stay in a secluded room before leaving. "Grandpa, how are his injuries? Are they serious?" In the courtyard, Lin Feng asked his grandfather. He was very simple and kind. "Foolish child, have you noticed why the monstrous beasts in the village have all quieted down?" the old man asked. "Yeah, all the demonic beasts are quiet." "How strange." Lin Feng was puzzled. The village had tamed many demonic beasts, but tonight, it was strangely quiet. It was very strange and inconceivable. "Rest early. I hope nothing will happen tomorrow," the old man said. "Grandpa, those people have gone too far. Sooner or later, I'll become an expert and protect our village. We'll never be bullied again." The young Lin Feng clenched his fists. His gaze was resolute. "You're ambitious, but the most important thing is to survive. You have to protect yourself first. Only then will you have the opportunity to become stronger and protect the villagers," the old man said earnestly. His face was full of vicissitudes. "Grandpa, I understand." The young Lin Feng seemed to understand, but not fully. The conversation in the courtyard couldn't escape Du Xiaofu's ears. Compared to the grandfather and grandson of the Yu family, it was like the difference between heaven and earth. How vicious were the Yu family's grandfather and grandson? This village seems to have met with some trouble. From the moment they entered the village, these simple villagers were very nervous, as if they were facing a great enemy. This made Du Xiaofu feel that this village might have met with some trouble. These villagers were very simple and kind-hearted. The conversation between the grandfather and grandson had especially touched Du Xiaofu. It could be considered as returning the favor if he could help them. However, Du Xiaofu forced a smile. This village was very small. The villagers were very kind-hearted and simple. They stood aloof from worldly affairs. If he got involved in some trouble, he wouldn't be able to stay here forever. Perhaps he would bring even greater trouble to these idyllic existences. Du Xiaofu had already inquired about the situation. So, he planned to leave early tomorrow morning. He didn't want to bring trouble to these villagers. He planned to cause trouble for the Yu family. Du Xiaofu pondered. The Yu family wasn't simple. Moreover, he was unfamiliar with this place. He didn't have any backing. Therefore, he needed to make some preparations. His cultivation had reached the peak of the initial stage of the Sage Realm at the moment. Du Xiaofu wanted to make further progress. Then, he would have a better chance of dealing with the Yu family. He had a lot of sage medicines and treasures with him. Du Xiaofu pondered. There was hope if he could forcibly make a breakthrough to the intermediate stage of the Sage Realm with the help of sage medicines and treasures. However, one couldn't rely solely on treasures to make further progress after reaching the Sage Realm. One's own comprehension was the key. He had made astonishing progress in his own comprehension during this time. He hadn't fallen behind. However, Du Xiaofu couldn't be sure that he would succeed if he tried to forcibly make a breakthrough now. Du Xiaofu thought of his Cyan Spirit Armor. The first layer of the Cyan Spirit Armor was the humanoid level. He had already succeeded in cultivating it. Its might was beyond his expectations. It was abnormally powerful. The second layer of the Cyan Spirit Armor was the beast-shaped level. According to the cultivation method that Du Xiaofu had obtained, the second layer of the Cyan Spirit Armor could condense a complete beast-shaped defense. Its defensive power was even more powerful and dreadful than the first layer. Just like the first layer, the final beast-shaped appearance of the second layer of the Cyan Spirit Armor was also related to the essence blood of the demon beasts used. If one cultivated with the essence blood of a real dragon, they could finally transform into a real dragon. Du Xiaofu could have cultivated the second layer of the Cyan Spirit Armor long ago. However, he hadn't cultivated it. He had already used his essence blood to arrange the Cyan Spirit Armor for the first layer. Coupled with the golden rock wings, he had already transformed into a real rock in human form. Whether it was his speed, fighting strength, or defense, all of them had skyrocketed. Du Xiaofu pondered. If he were to use his own blood essence to cultivate this second time, he would at most turn into a real golden-winged great rock. Even if his battle prowess, speed, and defense could be improved further, there wouldn't be much of a difference. What he cultivated was the cultivation method of the golden-winged great rock. Du Xiaofu thought of asking little Xingxing for some essence blood to cultivate the second layer of the Cyan spirit armor. With little Xingxing's essence blood, it would be enough to suppress all the demon beasts. Little Xingxing's father was the legendary dragon god. He was a terrifying expert on the same level as the master of 3,000 cosmos. Little Xingxing himself was also insanely powerful. However, after pondering carefully, Du Xiaofu decided to give up. Although little Xingxing was powerful enough, he wasn't weak either. If he cultivated the second form of the Cyan spirit armor with little Xingxing's essence blood and transformed into a dragon, he would be able to perform some of little Xingxing's moves. It would be like adding wings to a tiger, and his fighting strength would definitely improve. However, Du Xiaofu could still comprehend little Xingxing's moves even if he didn't use his essence blood to cultivate the second layer of the Cyan spirit armor. Besides, the amount of essence blood required to cultivate the second layer of the Cyan spirit armor wasn't just a little bit. It required a lot of essence blood to transform the Cyan spirit armor into its current state. A little essence blood wouldn't be a big deal to little Xingxing. However, a lot of essence blood was enough to affect little Xingxing's cultivation and foundation in the future. Hence, Du Xiaofu gave up on the idea directly. He had always wanted to cultivate the second layer of the Cyan spirit armor. However, the essence blood of demonic beasts was very important. He had to choose the essence blood of demonic beasts with super strong defense. Du Xiaofu had been searching for it all along. Du Xiaofu naturally wouldn't be interested in ordinary demonic beasts. He even thought about the dragons of the Four Seas and the phoenixes of Mount Wudong. They were undoubtedly one of the two most powerful supreme beast clans at that time. However, the dragons of the Four Seas and the phoenixes of Mount Wudong weren't stronger than the golden-winged rock clan. Hence, Du Xiaofu had to give up. It's really hard to find a suitable essence blood of demonic beasts. Sitting down with his legs crossed, Du Xiaofu pondered. In the end, he could only give up on the idea temporarily. It wasn't the right time to cultivate the second layer of the Cyan spirit armor. The Divine Palace. Du Xiaofu thought of the Divine Palace. If he could enter the Divine Palace, he might be able to benefit a lot. He might even be able to find an opportunity to advance further. Moreover, since he was already here, there was no reason to miss out on such a rare opportunity. If he left this place, he wouldn't have such an opportunity in the future. Moreover, the Yu clan wasn't far from the Divine Palace. Du Xiaofu felt that the Yu clan seemed to be planning something during this period. Perhaps it was related to Lu Limo. Hence, the Yu clan wanted to silence him. No matter what the Yu clan's plan was, if he could stop them, it would be considered as collecting some interest. Du Xiaofu pondered in his heart. After that, Du Xiaofu could only close his eyes and rest. When the time came, he would think of a way to enter the Divine Palace. If he could find an opportunity to break through to the intermediate Saint Realm, that would be the best. Otherwise, he could only take one step at a time. Early the next morning, he would get up and head to the Divine Palace. Early the next morning, Du Xiaofu was still resting with his eyes closed when he was alarmed by the roars of demonic beasts outside. The demonic beasts were noisy, and their roars were deafening. Du Xiaofu retracted his hand seal and exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. His mind probed slightly. Suddenly, his expression changed slightly, and his figure disappeared from the room. The peaceful village had beautiful scenery. However, at this moment, the entire village was alarmed. The old, the weak, the women, and the children poked their heads out. Their faces were filled with anxiety and anger. At the entrance of the village, many young men and women gathered. Their faces were filled with anxiety and anger as they clenched their fists. Chapter 23:12. Translator. H2DH2 Mr. Lin Feng spotted Du Xiaofu walking over from within the crowd and immediately pulled Du Xiaofu back. What are you doing here? Your injuries have healed. Don't go out. The surrounding young men and women also looked curiously at Du Xiaofu, but their gazes immediately turned anxiously towards the village entrance. What's going on? Du Xiaofu asked Lin Feng, his gaze also turning towards the village entrance. Outside the village entrance, there were currently over 30 monstrous beast mounts. Their ferocious mouths were roaring, their ferocious eyes glowing. Compared to the few monstrous beasts at the village entrance, they were much taller and more ferocious. Their ferocious auras intimidated the few subdued monstrous beasts inside and outside the village, causing them to prostrate themselves on the ground in fear. Atop each of these monstrous beast mounts sat a figure clad in full armor. Their auras were powerful, and their ink-black armor glowed brightly. The formless aura that emanated from them caused the entire village to tremble. These people are from the Black Cavalry Corps. They want to select youths from our village of suitable age to participate in the Divine Temple's examination. If they find any supreme prodigy among them, they can stay in the Divine Temple. Lin Feng's reply also fell into Du Xiaofu's ears. Shouldn't this be a good thing? Du Xiaofu was a little puzzled when he heard this. Looking at the expressions of these villagers, it seemed like they were all hiding, unwilling to go. It should have been a good thing, but the Yu family won't let us go. For the past several hundred years, they've always used the excuse of the examination to send people to attack our Lin family disciples along the way. They won't let us reach the Divine Temple at all. Many of our Lin family's young disciples have already met with misfortune, and not a single one has ever returned. Our Lin family is not a weak family to begin with, but now we're down to this village of people. But the Yu family still won't let us go. Lin Feng clenched his fists tightly, his gaze furious. The Yu clan? Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows. Indeed, the Yu clan was everywhere. They had actually been dealing with the Lin clan for hundreds of years. Every once in a while, they would strangle the talented young disciples of the Lin clan in the cradle. They were determined to wipe out the entire bloodline of the Lin clan. They were too vicious and merciless. If this continued, the Lin clan would indeed cease to exist. As time passed, there would be no more outstanding disciples left. In the end, they would all perish in this ominous land. Du Xiaofu had seen the Yu clan's viciousness and knew that they were absolutely capable of doing such a thing. Old Lin, the day has arrived. Can the selected people set off now? Outside the village, the leader of the Black Cavalry Regiment's group of 30 or so people was riding an exceptionally ferocious demonic beast. The patterns on his armor were deep, and it was clear that he had a higher status. Only his middle-aged face was revealed, and he looked down on the old village chief as he asked this question. Sir, the young people in the village are too old, and the young ones are too young. There really aren't any suitable ones. The old village chief looked at the leader in military attire and was extremely humble. Old Lin, do you think I don't know that the grandson you got in your later years has already reached the appropriate age? I have a list of everyone in the Lin clan village, and you can't hide from it. I know that you don't have many capable descendants in this small Lin clan village. Hand over 10 of them, and I'll bring them to the temple for testing. Otherwise, I'll personally go in and find them. The leading military officer sneered. His domineering voice was like thunder. Sir, the Lin clan village really doesn't have that many suitable young people. Please be magnanimous. Whatever conditions you have, as long as it's within this old man's ability, I'll definitely do it. The old village chief begged. He knew all too well that the Yu clan's influence was too great. It was so great that the Lin clan village couldn't avoid it for hundreds of years. Now you know how to beg? If you knew this would happen, why did your Lin clan's ancestors have to offend the Yu clan? Hand over 10 of your children to the temple for testing. Otherwise, I'll flatten this small Lin clan village today. Choose for yourself. The military officer berated. The demonic beast he was mounted on was about to pounce, and it roared ferociously. Don't go too far, the old village chief said in a deep voice. The aura on his body fluctuated. He didn't fear the military officer in front of him, but he knew very well that he couldn't protect the entire village. These dozens of people from the Black Flag Army were enough to flatten the entire village. When the time came, blood would flow everywhere. You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Do you really think your cultivation can stop me? Then I'll thoroughly deal with you today. The military officer opened his mouth. Before he finished speaking, his figure directly leapt out from his mount. The aura of the peak of the consummate martial emperor realm erupted in an instant. A palm print, which seemed to carry the shadow of a strange beast, rushed out and directly slapped towards the old village chief. The old village chief's expression changed. At this moment, his white beard trembled. The sole of his foot stamped on the ground, and his fist shone brightly. Symbols interweaved, and an ancient aura collided with the palm print. Bang! The muffled sound of energy instantly rang out. The ground trembled and cracked, and the impact of the energy caused sand and stones to fly in all directions. Ding ding! The two figures were forced back at the same time. They both rubbed against the ground for several zhong before stabilizing their bodies. It was as if neither of them had gained the upper hand. Village Chief. In the village, many villagers surrounded them. Some of the able-bodied men were already unable to restrain their anger. Their auras surged, and they wanted to fight to the death. Awu. The auras of the 30 or so people from the Black Flag Army also surged. Almost all of them had the cultivation of the martial emperor realm. Demonic beasts roared, and their auras were vast. It resounded through the mountain forest and shook the void. In an instant, both sides were on the verge of breaking out. It seemed like a great battle was about to begin. The military officer stopped. After stabilizing his body, he looked at the old village chief. His expression seemed to be rather astonished. His voice was much gloomier as he said, "Fine, I'll flatten this place today. In the future, I won't have to trouble you anymore." Kill. When these words came out from the military officer's mouth, his figure rushed out in an instant. His aura was even more vigorous. Mysterious symbols interweaved, and he was as fast as lightning. A bright light burst out from his finger, and his power was like thunder. Like lightning, he instantly arrived in front of the old village chief. Flatten the Lin family village. Kill. Awu. At the same time, the Black Flag Army shouted loudly. Waves of powerful auras exploded. Demonic beasts raised their hooves and galloped forward. Their cries were deafening. The beasts' roars were like thunder. Swish! The lightning-fast guide was filled with murderous intent and terrifying power. It distorted the void and instantly reached the old village chief's throat. Protect the old, the weak, the women, and the children. Leave. The old village chief's expression changed. As he retreated in a straight line, he shouted. He knew that with his cultivation level and strength, there was no way he could stop the Black Flag Army. The disciples of the Lin family village were no match for them. Rivers of blood would flow. Just as the old village chief retreated and was about to block them, a figure appeared like a ghost. He stretched out his hand and blocked the ferocious guide. At the same time, a shout was heard. Scram! This shout was only one word, but for some reason, it was like thunder. It caused the void to rumble, and an invisible wave of space quietly spread out. Such a shout was nothing to the villagers of the Lin family village. However, to the Black Flag Army and their demonic beast mounts, it was as if they had been struck by lightning. Their soul and beast souls trembled. Their bodies trembled and went limp. The demonic beasts prostrated themselves on the ground. The figures fell from the backs of the demonic beasts. Whether it was the demonic beast mounts or the Black Flag Army, they all vomited blood. Their eyes were filled with fear. The sudden change of events caused the villagers of the Lin family village to think that it would be a battle to the death. They were even prepared to fight to the death. However, what happened in front of them left them dumbfounded. Their eyes naturally gathered on the figure that suddenly appeared. "It's him!" Some of the villagers of the Lin family village exclaimed. The figure that suddenly appeared was actually the injured young man from last night. The old village chief was also shocked. He had guessed that the mysterious young man was not simple. However, he did not expect the young man to be so strong. At this moment, the person who was most shocked was the officer of the Black Cavalry Regiment. His finger was like a swamp in front of the young man's palm that had suddenly appeared. No matter how much strength he used, it was useless. The palm was calmly placed in front of him, but it made him feel as if he was being suppressed by 100,000 mountains. He was powerless to resist. The profound energy in his body was also blocked, and his heart felt as if it was about to explode from the pressure. "Boy, we are from the Black Flag Army. We are here to carry out our official duties. Do you dare to stop us?" The officer spoke. He was from the Black Flag Army. Who would dare to provoke the Black Flag Army? How dare you threaten me? You're courting death. Du Xiaofu spoke. As his voice faded, golden light gushed out from the center of his palm, and an incomparably domineering force suddenly swept out. Bang! The officer's body exploded and turned into a mist of blood. The surroundings fell into a strange silence. Even the demonic beasts kept quiet out of fear. Huff! Huff! After a while, the people around them secretly gasped. Their eyes were filled with shock. They were extremely shocked. Everyone, wait for me. If anyone dares to leave, your head will be the end. I will follow you to the divine temple later. Du Xiaofu's gaze swept across the 30 men from the Black Flag Army who were lying limp and vomiting blood. He then turned to the old village chief and said, "Village chief, can we talk in the village?" Okay, please come in." The old village chief had already regained his senses. However, the shock in his eyes did not fade. Du Xiaofu and the old village chief returned to the village amidst the dumbfounded gazes of the numerous villagers. The dozens of people from the Black Cavalry Regiment looked at each other with shock in their eyes. They couldn't help but tremble and didn't dare to leave. Their leader was at the peak of the complete martial royal realm and was about to step into the martial honorable realm. However, he was easily killed by the young man. With such strength, they could not escape. "Sir, thank you for saving us. I thank you on behalf of the Lin family village." After a while, the old village chief bowed in the hall. He knew that the young man in front of him was much more powerful than he had imagined. "Thank you, sir." In the hall, there were a few old men and middle-aged men. Lin Feng and a few other young men and women bowed respectfully. Chapter 23:13. Translator. H2-2 Mr. Village Chief, you're too polite. It's nothing worth mentioning. Du Xiaofu hurriedly helped the old village chief up, telling everyone to dispense with the formalities. "I heard them mention the Yu family. Just what kind of grudge does the Lin family village have with the Yu family for them to target the Lin family village like this?" Du Xiaofu asked. He wanted to understand the grudge between the Lin family village and the Yu family. He hadn't originally wanted to interfere, but firstly, the Lin family village was simple and kind, so he owed them a debt of gratitude. Secondly, he was about to deal with the Yu family, so it was good to know more about the Yu family's situation. Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, the old village chief looked hesitant, wanting to speak, but hesitating. "To tell you the truth, the Yu family and I also have some grudges." "Village chief, please feel free to speak," Du Xiaofu said. "It's a long story. It's already been several hundred years." The old village chief was rather surprised, but then he slowly revealed the secret. It turned out that for several hundred years, the Lin family village had become the Lin family. They were still a second-rate clan of the human race, and had once had a martial domain realm cultivator overseeing them. Although they couldn't compare to the Yu family and other great clans, they still had quite a bit of status among the human race. However, later on, an ancestor of the Lin family obtained a treasure from a secret location. The news somehow reached the ears of an expert of the Yu family, who said he wanted to borrow it to take a look. Everyone knew that the Yu family wouldn't just borrow it to take a look. They clearly wanted to get their hands on it. The ancestor of the Lin family was naturally unwilling and politely asked for a meeting. Unexpectedly, the expert of the Yu family refused to let the matter rest, directly attacking to seize the treasure. Many of the Lin family disciples were furious, but how could the Lin family be a match for him? They were all heavily injured. The Lin family refused to accept this and wanted to find the human emperor to settle the matter. However, the expert of the Yu family insisted that the treasure originally belonged to the Yu family. With the Yu family's power, the Lin family couldn't argue back. The human emperor was also helpless and could only let the matter rest. However, the Lin clan had offended the Yu clan and suffered continuous suppression from the Yu clan. Many of their experts and disciples were killed outside, and the Yu clan's vassal forces made things difficult for them. Everyone knew that it was the Yu clan's doing, but they couldn't do anything about it. In just a few years, the Lin clan suffered a disastrous decline, and their talents withered. There were other large clans who couldn't stand the Yu clan's actions. They were also related to the Lin clan, so they spoke up and told them not to go too far. At the same time, they also told the Lin clan to leave the Yu clan's sphere of influence and leave the Lin clan's bloodline. However, even though the Yu clan seemed to be wary of the Lin clan on the surface and had indeed restrained themselves a lot, they still hadn't let the Lin clan off the hook. Every time the younger generation was tested, the Yu clan would secretly make a move. Over the past several hundred years, every time the younger generation of the Lin clan was tested, none of them of suitable age would be able to escape. The Yu clan had been keeping a close eye on them, and they wouldn't let go of anyone with decent talent. Thus, the Lin clan had reached their current state. The Yu clan and I are absolutely irreconcilable. This is a blood feud that runs as deep as the ocean. My father went out to look for opportunities, but the Yu clan secretly intercepted and killed him. Lin Feng clenched his fists tightly. His eyes were bloodshot on his young and tender face. That was because he was burning with rage. Du Xiaofu's eyes darkened. The Yu clan was truly vicious to the extreme. Sir, you should leave this place as soon as possible. The Black Cavalry Corps belongs to the Yu clan. Once they receive the news, they won't let this matter rest. The Lin clan village has to leave as well. As long as we can leave the Lin clan's bloodline, we won't hesitate even if we have to go to the Beast Alliance's territory. The old village chief had tears in his eyes. They couldn't stay in the Lin clan village any longer. They could only leave the Yu clan sphere of influence by going to the Beast Alliance's territory. Once we reach the Beast Alliance, will we really be able to leave the Lin clan's bloodline behind? Du Xiaofu looked at the old village chief. Not to mention that the Beast Alliance was the beast race's territory, they would only treat humans as battle servants. This time, he couldn't help but make a move, which would definitely alarm the Yu clan. With the Yu clan's viciousness, they wouldn't give the Lin clan any chance. The experts of the Yu clan would probably come after them to exterminate them. Escaping to the Beast Alliance would be useless. Is the heavens going to forget about the Lin clan? The old village chief's aged face was filled with tears. How could he not understand what Du Xiaofu was referring to? Can the supreme prodigies who are tested enter the divine palace? Du Xiaofu asked. That's right. Any human junior of the right age can participate in the divine palace's test. This is a rule left behind by the divine palace's ancestors. As long as they are supreme prodigies and supreme prodigies of the human race, they will be able to obtain the divine palace's cultivation resources. The old village chief said with some doubt in his eyes. Judging from the young man's bearing, his background was definitely not simple. However, he didn't seem to know something that everyone in the human race knew. How about this? I will represent the Lin clan's village to go to the divine palace's test and buy you some time. If you can find a safe place to stay, then leave as soon as possible. Du Xiaofu said. When he helped, he had already made a decision. He was looking for a chance to enter the divine palace. If he could get the chance to enter the divine palace through the test, it would be killing two birds with one stone. With him around, the Yu clan would probably only deal with him in the short term. He could buy some time for the Lin clan's village. As for the future, he would only be an outsider in this fearsome land. Sir, you want to go to the divine palace? Hearing this, the old village chief and the others were shocked. After killing the Black Cavalry, he wanted to go to the divine palace. This was undoubtedly walking into the hands of the Yu clan. He was walking right into their trap. Don't worry, I'll be fine. The Yu clan won't be able to deal with me. Du Xiaofu said. He reckoned that once he reached the divine palace, the Yu clan would not be able to monopolize it. They would definitely have some fear if they wanted to deal with him. Furthermore, the Yu clan seemed to be plotting something recently. He couldn't let them do as they wished. This could be considered as collecting some interest first. As for whether the Yu clan had a super expert, Du Xiaofu had his own plans. Fui Bai, Nanru, and the others still had a trump card to deal with the demon god. No matter how strong the Yu clan's expert was, it would be enough for him to escape. Sir, there's no need for you to do this for the Lin clan's village. The Yu clan is too big. There's no way to deal with them, the old village chief said seriously. I'm not doing this for the Lin clan's village. I just happened to be going to the divine palace, Du Xiaofu said. Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, the old village chief's eyes lit up. He immediately knelt down and said to the people behind him, Lin Feng, Lin Zhu, Lin Yao, Lin Pu, kneel down as well. This scene astonished everyone present. Behind the old village chief, Lin Feng and the other three youths of similar age also knelt down. Although they had puzzled expressions on their faces, they still followed suit. Old village chief, you can't do this. Du Xiaofu was astonished. He wanted to help the old village chief up. Your Excellency, please bring the four of them to the Divine Temple for testing. These four juniors are quite talented, but it is a pity that our Lin family village has too little cultivation resources, which has hindered their future. If they are able to achieve something in the Divine Temple, it will be the fortune of our Lin family village. Please agree, Your Excellency. This old man is willing to be a cow or a horse for the rest of his life. The old village chief did not get up and looked at Du Xiaofu pleadingly. Chapter 23:14. Du Xiaofu was stunned and surprised. If he brought Lin Feng and the others along, it would be inconvenient, and there was no way to ensure their safety. This time, Du Xiaofu didn't even have full confidence in dealing with the Yu clan on his trip to the Divine Temple, let alone bringing a few more people with him. I know this request will inconvenience you, sir, but please grant it. This is the Lin family's last chance to survive. If the four of them can enter the temple, our village will have a chance. This was the Lin family village's last chance. As long as Lin Feng and the other three could stay in the Divine Temple, although it would still be very dangerous, it would undoubtedly make the Yu family somewhat fearful. The Yu family was still unable to control the Divine Temple with one hand. Only when the younger generation matured and became strong could the Lin family have a future. Otherwise, if the Lin family escaped today, there would be no future. In a few hundred years, or even 1,000 years, the entire Lin family would probably cease to exist. Originally, the village chief did not have such thoughts, but it was different now. The young man in front of him was not simple, and even dared to take the initiative to enter the temple. How could such a person be simple? The young man in front of him had a strong aura. This was an opportunity for the Lin family. The village chief did not want to miss it. Sir, please bring us along. We want to go to the temple. Lin Feng and the other three were also pleading. Their eyes were filled with determination and stubbornness. How could they not know that only by going to the Sage Temple and being tested as a supreme genius would they have the opportunity to become stronger? Only then would they be able to protect the Lin village and the Lin family in the future. Du Xiaofu looked at the old village chief, then at Lin Feng and the other three youths. His heart was moved. After a moment of hesitation, he nodded and said, I can bring you to the sacred palace, and I will do my best to protect your safety along the way. However, there might be a chance. As for what the outcome will be, I can't say for sure. Thank you, sir. The village chief was pleasantly surprised. After a while, the group left the village. Other than Du Xiaofu, Lin Feng and the others, there was an old man and four middle-aged men. They were the few people with the strongest cultivation in the Lin family village apart from the old village head. With them, they could take care of Lin Feng and the other three. Sir, be careful on the way. At the entrance of the village chief and many other elders came forward, grateful and exhorting. Children, be careful on the way. Be careful. Many people surrounded Lin Feng, Lin Pu, and Lin Yao, exhorting them. Some elders were weeping and worried. In the past, none of the youths who had gone to the temple to be tested had returned safely. This farewell might be an eternal farewell. These children were still too young. We will definitely enter the temple and protect the Lin family and never be bullied. Lin Pu, Lin Yao, and the others were. The Black cavalries were outside the village. The Black cavalry, outside. They did not dare Black cavalry outside. Following which, Du Xiaofu led Lin Feng and the rest out, allowing the Black Cavalry Regiment members to free up a few demonic beast mounts for Lin Feng and the rest. As for Du Xiaofu, he rode the mount of the slain officer, leaving last. Those demonic beast mounts had originally been well-trained and very obedient. However, under the suppression of Du Xiaofu's formless aura, they all submitted, not daring to resist. How long will it take to reach the temple? On the way, Du Xiaofu asked the Black Cavalry behind him. 2 hours later, we will arrive at Jade Sea City. There will be a gathering of the younger generation there, riding a flying sacred artifact to Jade Sea City before passing through a spatial wormhole to reach the temple. "We should be able to reach the temple by tomorrow afternoon," one of the black cavalry said, his gaze still filled with fear. "After arriving at Jade Sea City, tell those who should be told that the Lin family is going to the temple for the test. Do not come and provoke them. Otherwise, I will not be polite," Du Xiaofu said. After arriving at Jade Sea City, they would definitely meet the black cavalry. He could not be bothered to waste time on these small fries. After arriving at the temple, he would meet the Yu family head-on. That would be the true battlefield with the Yu family. Hearing this, those of the black cavalry trembled. When had such a junior appeared in the Lin family? Too strong, easily slaying someone who was already close to the martial exalt realm with a single move. This was definitely already a heaven's chosen. The demonic beasts of the black cavalry were very fast, traversing through the mountain forests. 2 hours later, the silhouette of a city appeared before their eyes. That was Jade Sea City. It was not very large in size. When Du Xiaofu arrived at the city gates, he encountered many densely packed figures. A small portion of them were young men and women, while the rest seemed to be the elders of these youths as well as the people accompanying them. These are all people from the nearby villages and towns. They have all gathered here to participate in the test for the temple. The older ones are all there to look after the descendants of their families. Some of them have experience and can be guided when the time comes. The old man accompanying the Lin family village told Du Xiaofu about the situation, seeming to know quite a few people. It was just that when the surrounding people saw that the Lin family people were together with the black cavalry, they instantly retreated far away. "Sigh, the Lin family people have come again. I'm afraid they won't even make it to the temple. The Lin family village is really pitiful. Having offended the Yu family, they will never be able to make a comeback." When the people of the Lin family village entered the city, the streets were bustling with activity. From time to time, whispers could be heard. Although the voices were very low, they could not escape Du Xiaofu's ears. "Everyone who is going to the sacred palace will have to line up here to take a flying sacred artifact to Jadefall City and pass through the spatial wormhole." The members of the Black Cavalry Regiment anxiously escorted Du Xiaofu and the others to a huge square. They even escorted them to the front of the square. At this moment, there was already a dense crowd waiting on the square. There were men and women, old and young, and many of them had extraordinary auras. When these people saw the Black Cavalry Regiment respectfully leading a group of people to the front, they couldn't help but feel a little strange. When they saw that these people were from the Lin village, they were even more surprised and puzzled. At this moment, Du Xiaofu had secretly scanned the entire Jade Sea City with his mind. There were no Saint Realm cultivators, but he felt the aura of many Domain Realm cultivators. However, given Du Xiaofu's current cultivation level, he didn't care about Nirvana Supremes who were at the pinnacle of the indestructible realm. These Domain Realm cultivators only surprised Du Xiaofu a little. At this moment, only people from the nearby towns and villages had gathered in Jade Sea City, but there were already many Domain Realm cultivators. This was something that Kyushu couldn't compare with in the outside world. "We'll line up again. You can go down." Du Xiaofu waved his hand, motioning the Black Cavalry Regiment to leave. He had no intention of making things difficult for these people. "Russell," the crowd secretly whispered. Some people in the surroundings couldn't help but secretly retreat a little when they saw the people of the Lin village. They are afraid of getting into trouble. The old man of the Lin village revealed a wry smile. The people of the Lin village had long been used to being treated like this. For hundreds of years, the people in the surrounding villages and towns didn't dare to openly exchange cultivation resources with the Lin village. Even the shops didn't interact with the people of the Lin village. The cultivation resources that the Lin family village needed were often obtained by paying a higher price in secret. "I will work hard to enter the temple and change all of this." Looking at the attitude of the people around the Lin village, Lin Feng and the other juniors secretly clenched their fists. They felt that all of this was unfair. "You're really not afraid. You're used to being arrogant." Suddenly, Du Xiaofu's eyes slightly raised, and a faint smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. "Oh, war!" The beast roared like thunder, and the ground trembled as if the entire Jade Sea City was shaking. The majestic horde of demonic beasts neatly galloped out from the direction of the most majestic building in the city. Their imposing aura startled everyone in the city. All of them turned their gazes over, and when they saw the majestic horde of demonic beasts galloping towards the public square, all of them retreated, not daring to get close. Rumble, the momentum was astonishing. On top of the majestic beast mounts were the people of the Black Cavalry Corps. There were a lot of people, probably more than 2,000 of them. Their black armor glowed, and their ferocious auras gathered together and soared into the clouds. Immediately, an oppressive feeling appeared in the sky, as if a storm was coming. You dare to kill the leader of my Black Flag Corps? Do you want the small Lin village to be trampled? With such a loud shout, even the roars of the beast mounts were masked. It was like a thunderclap in the sky of Jade Sea City, deafening to the ears. When such a voice fell, the imposing manner of the Black Cavalry Corps was fierce. In front of the densely packed Black Cavalry Corps, a pitch-black demonic beast that looked like a tiger or a dragon stepped out. It was 3 feet long, densely covered in black scales, and had a pair of wings on its back. Its eyes were fierce and frightening, and it looked like it was about to pounce. Such a fierce demonic beast mount was already at the complete realm of beast-revered realm. Its inexplicable aura made the figures in the square tremble. At this moment, a small figure was sitting on top of this ferocious mount. He seemed to be a young man around 10 years old. The black armor on his body was shiny, and the talisman patterns on the armor emitted a radiance. His face seemed to be around 50 years old. However, such a small figure exuded an incomparably powerful aura, distorting the surrounding void. That pair of long and narrow eyes were even more frightening, as if it could cause one's soul to tremble just by looking at it. At this moment, such a gaze fell on the people of the Lin village. Lin Feng and the others trembled and couldn't help but collapse. Du Xiaofu secretly released some of his aura to protect the people of the Lin family. He glanced at the small figure. He should have just stepped into the initial realm of domain not long ago. But it was not bad. In the Sanlu Kyushu, he was already a first-class expert. Chapter 23:15. Sir, it's that young man. He killed our leader. A member of the Black Cavalry Regiment who had followed them all the way back said to the slightly skinny figure, "Brat, I don't care who you are. You're going to die." The leader stared straight at Du Xiaofu as he growled. His long and narrow eyes were filled with cold killing intent, but he had no intention of making a move. Roar! As soon as he finished speaking, the demonic beast that seemed like a mix between a tiger and a dragon let out a neigh, and it opened its bloody mouth to reveal its fangs. Its entire body glowed, and it was ferocious to the extreme. It directly dashed up and pounced directly towards Du Xiaofu with the intention of directly biting Du Xiaofu into pieces. This demonic beast mount was already very strong. It was at the complete beast sovereign realm. The terrifying bloody aura it exuded caused Lin Feng and the rest to tremble. Du Xiaofu raised his hand and flicked his sleeve. A faint golden light rippled in front of him. Bang bang, however, it was this light palm that caused the void to shatter. Everything seemed slow, but in reality, it was as fast as lightning. The demonic beast mount and the skinny leader did not even have time to react. They did not even know what had happened before they exploded in the shattered void and turned into a bloody mist. I said, "Don't provoke us. Do you want to die?" As such, Du Xiaofu shouted. Looking at the 2,000 members of the Black Cavalry Regiment, his eyes rippled with golden light. Roar! The demonic beast roared, as if it had received the greatest shock. Instantly, fear surged in its ferocious eyes. The Black Cavalry Regiment went limp on the ground. Everyone was dumbfounded, unable to recover from their shock. Lin Feng, Lin Yao, and the other members of the Lin family were also dumbfounded. Originally, they thought that things were not looking good for them. The demonic beast mount was already so powerful that it was beyond what they had ever seen in their lives. However, they did not expect that the powerful demonic beast and the expert from the Black Cavalry Corps could not even withstand a single blow from the young lord. Gulp gulp. After a few breaths, the crowd gasped. Some people's throats were boiling as they swallowed their saliva. They were dumbfounded. The 2,000 members of the Black Cavalry Regiment stood up, trembling. Their eyes were filled with fear and trepidation. Their leader was at the domain realm, but he could not withstand a single blow from the young man and was killed. The young man obviously did not take the Black Cavalry Regiment seriously. Such a person was not someone they could provoke. Can we set off for Billowing City now? Du Xiaofu's gaze swept across the Black Cavalry Corps, causing the 2,000 members of the Black Cavalry Corps to feel their hair stand on end for no reason. Du Xiaofu's intimidation was too strong, but there was no doubt that this kind of intimidation was the most useful. Boom! A huge flying saint artifact appeared in the void of the square. It looked like a flying ship and was engraved with ancient runes. Its aura was vast. This was a flying saint artifact. Although it did not appear to be large, its interior was extremely large. It could accommodate many living beings. Du Xiaofu and the disciples of the Lin family were respectfully invited onto the flying saint artifact. They were arranged in the most comfortable places while the others lined up to enter. Soon after, the flying-type saint artifact streaked across the sky, heading towards Jadefall City. Although its speed was not as fast as the flying-type saint artifact used by the Yu clan, it was still not slow. Du Xiaofu sat cross-legged on the flying saint artifact. His eyes were closed as he rested. He completely ignored the Black Cavalry Corps. Since he had already decided to enter the Divine Temple, Du Xiaofu decided to do it openly. Perhaps it would be easier to deal with the Yu family after making a big deal out of it. Once the matter was blown out of proportion, the Yu family would no longer be able to cover the sky with one hand. On the flying-type saint artifact, Lin Feng, Lin Pu, and the others were still in a daze as they stared at Du Xiaofu, who was seated cross-legged. They knew that the young man in front of them was an expert, but they did not expect him to be so powerful. Jadefall City was one of the largest and most prosperous cities in the human world. There were spatial wormholes connecting the various major cities to the Divine Temple. Recently, there were too many people heading to Jadefall City. They were the younger generation of the various major powers. Under the guidance of their elders, they had to pass through the spatial wormholes to reach the Divine Temple. Deep into the night, Jadefall City was still brightly lit and extraordinarily bustling. Shops were open along the streets, and the sides of the streets were densely packed with simple stalls that sold all sorts of cultivation materials and rare and strange items. When Du Xiaofu and the others arrived at Jadefall City on the Flying Saint artifact, they were shocked by the prosperity of Jadefall City. It was much more lively than they had imagined. And this was just one city. From the looks of it, the Danger Lands had already become an independent world. The human race had also multiplied to a great extent. The inns in the city were already filled to the brim. The spatial wormhole seemed to have been closed. Many people could only wait in the plaza. Some were sitting cross-legged with their eyes closed, while others were strolling leisurely on the streets. The spatial wormhole will open early tomorrow morning. When the time comes, we will enter the wormhole in batches. A member of the Black Cavalry Regiment said to Du Xiaofu. His heart was still beating fast, and he did not dare to get close. Du Xiaofu ignored him. He strolled along the streets curiously, looking at the cultivation materials. However, there were some differences between this place and the Beast Alliance. Cultivation materials could be purchased, unlike the Beast Alliance, where one could only exchange for items. However, some precious cultivation materials such as treasured herbs, artifacts, and heavenly treasures could only be exchanged for treasures of the same level. No one would be foolish enough to sell them separately. In a few large shops, Du Xiaofu discovered some rare treasured herbs and materials for forging talisman arrays. He exchanged them for cultivation materials of the same level. On the streets, the bustling crowd was densely packed. On both sides of the streets, the clamor of hawking reached into the night sky. It was extraordinarily lively. Young man, come over quickly. This is a map of a secret location. It contains a huge opportunity. If you can obtain it, it will be enough for you to reach the peak and make a name for yourself. You only need a sacred artifact or a half-step sacred herb. Don't miss it. A thin old man pulled Du Xiaofu back and mysteriously took out an old item from his lapel. He was afraid that someone would find it and rob it. Du Xiaofu smiled bitterly, shook his head, and left immediately. How was this a treasure? This was clearly a scam. Young man, I won't lie to you. You will regret it if you leave. How about this? A sacred artifact will do. How about a Tao artifact? A Tao artifact will do. Young man, don't go. Let's discuss this. Voices kept coming from behind. Let's go. Wait for me here. Lin Feng, follow me to a place, Du Xiaofu said to Lin Feng. Chapter 23:16. Everyone was puzzled, but had no objections. They trusted the young man in front of them. If he had any intention of harming them, he could have razed the Lin family village to the ground. After a while, at a deserted street corner, Du Xiaofu stopped and looked at Lin Feng. Sir, what are we doing here? Lin Feng was puzzled and looked around. You want to join the temple? Du Xiaofu asked Lin Feng. Of course. Only by joining the temple can I become strong. Only by joining the temple will I have a chance. Lin Feng said with determination. Du Xiaofu asked calmly, why do you want to become strong? I want to protect the Lin family village. I want to become strong so that no one will dare to bully the Lin family village. Lin Feng clenched his fists. Only by becoming strong could he protect the Lin family village. Du Xiaofu was moved. He thought of himself in the past. Wasn't he the same? Even now, only by becoming the strongest could he protect his family and friends. Have you ever thought about what would happen if you were not talented enough to pass the test and enter the temple? Du Xiaofu asked. Lin Feng, Lin Pu, Lin Yao, and the others' talents could not escape Du Xiaofu's prying eyes. Although they were not bad, they had grown up in the Lin family village and had lost the best time to build their foundation. Among the humans in the danger grounds, they did not have much confidence to stand out and become a true paragon. Lin Feng's face darkened. When Lin Feng heard this, the look in his eyes suddenly dimmed. He wanted to join the divine temple, but he knew that one had to have supreme talent to enter the divine temple. He wasn't sure if he had the chance to join the divine temple with his talent. If he couldn't pass the test, he wouldn't be able to join the divine temple and become a cultivator. Sir, I've never thought about it before. But even if I can't pass the test, I'll still work hard in my cultivation. I'm 10 times more hardworking than others. If that's not enough, I'll work 100 times harder. I believe that I'll have the chance to become an expert one day. Lin Feng inclined his head and stared at Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu smiled and said, how about this? I have an idea. Although I cannot guarantee that you will pass the test and enter the temple, at least you will have a chance to improve. But the process is tough and tempering, and no one can take it of God. I don't know if you are. Dong dong dong. Lin Feng, Lin Feng, Lin Feng. Sir Lin. No. Lin, 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 Lin. Lin Feng, Lin, Lin was. Lin Feng, Lin, 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 Lin. Lin was Lin Lin. Lin Lin. Lin was Lin Lin. Lin Feng was to Lin of. Of Lin of how of. Get up. Du Xiaofu pulled Lin Feng to his feet and smiled. Lin Feng's talent was not bad, but his foundation was not enough. If he wanted to enter the temple and become a supreme genius, he could succeed with a little modification. But the final result would depend on his own luck. Half an hour later, Du Xiaofu returned to his original place, but when he saw the scene in front of him, his face darkened. The place where Lin Pu, Lin Yao, and the others had been waiting was now crowded with people. There were hundreds of people from the Black Cavalry Corps riding on ferocious demonic beasts in the middle. Every one of them was clad in black armor, and mysterious runes were fluctuating. A strong and fierce aura spread out. Compared to the people of the Black Cavalry Corps in Jade Sea City, there was a world of difference. Du Xiaofu glanced at them indifferently. Among the hundreds of people from the Black Cavalry Corps, the weakest was at the Martial Emperor realm. The one in front was a middle-aged man with a strong build and piercing eyes. He was at the Boundary Domain realm. Du Xiaofu slowly approached, the faint aura fluctuating from his body. The surrounding people were suddenly shaken and moved away involuntarily. The crowd was in an uproar. In the middle of the crowd, the hundreds of people from the Black Cavalry Corps suddenly looked at Du Xiaofu. Roar. The demonic beasts growled in a low voice, their ferocious eyes staring at Du Xiaofu. For some reason, they seemed restless and uneasy. This change caused the 100 Black Cavalry Regiment to be secretly surprised. Their mounts were not ordinary. They were all mounts that had recognized their masters. Their cultivations were also not low. However, at this moment, they seemed to be somewhat out of their control. Du Xiaofu walked to the center of the field. He already knew that Lin Pu, Lin Yao, and the others were not here to negotiate. He raised his head slightly and looked at the middle-aged leader. He said, "Where are the people I brought?" Hearing this, the people from the Black Cavalry Corps were secretly shocked. This young man did not seem to take them seriously. "You are the young man from the Lin family village who killed our people?" The middle-aged leader asked. He had a powerful aura. His aura fluctuated secretly, and his voice was deafening. It was enough to make people tremble in fear. "Those people wanted to kill us and massacre the Lin family village. Shouldn't we kill a few of them?" Du Xiaofu looked at the middle-aged leader and said, "Could it be that the Black Cavalry Corps is under the control of the Yu family?" Hearing this, the middle-aged leader's face changed. He said, "The Black Cavalry Corps is under the command of the Sage Temple. They are directly under the command of the Renhuang. Apart from the Renhuang, no one can mobilize them. No matter what the reason is, you must come with us for killing our people. After the investigation is done, if you are not in the wrong, you will not have to bear the main responsibility." "You mean, even if it is not my fault, as long as I kill the Black Cavalry Corps, I have to bear the responsibility?" Du Xiaofu said indifferently. He could tell from the man's words that the Black Cavalry Corps was not under the control of the Yu family. It was just that the Yu family had many people in the Black Cavalry Corps. Among the human race, not only the Black Cavalry Corps, no matter who it is forbidden to kill and bully the weak. Those who violate this rule will be punished. If the other party is guilty, the Sage Temple will judge, the middle-aged leader said. "Someone wanted to kill me. I killed him. Is that a crime?" Du Xiaofu asked, looking directly at the middle-aged leader. The middle-aged leader was slightly stunned. He said in a low voice, "You have the ability to kill the other party. If they wanted to kill you, they would not be able to do so." "You mean, the Black Cavalry Corps can kill me, but if I defend myself, I will be guilty?" Du Xiaofu smiled faintly. He stared at the middle-aged leader and said, "Then I want to kill you now. If you dare to fight back, you will be guilty." Swish. The moment he finished speaking, Du Xiaofu's figure had already appeared in front of the middle-aged leader like a ghost. Chapter 23:17. Everything happened too quickly. The middle-aged leader didn't even have time to react when the figure in front of him expanded rapidly, appearing right in front of him in an instant. Even more shocking to him was the mount beneath him directly fell limp, whereas the profound energy on his body was obstructed while his soul core trembled as if he'd fallen into a swamp. His entire body was confined, and he didn't have the slightest ability to resist. "If I want to kill you now, it'll be as easy as flipping my palm. You won't even have the strength to retaliate." Du Xiaofu stopped in front of the middle-aged man, his feet hovering in the air as he stared at the middle-aged man with disdain. "You have half an incense stick's worth of time to bring back the people I brought here. If you lose even a single strand of hair, I'll raze Jadefall City to the ground. If you don't believe me, you can try." As his voice faded, Du Xiaofu landed on the ground, golden light surging beneath his feet. Rumble. As Du Xiaofu landed on the ground, the entire Jadefall City shook as though there was an earthquake, causing all living beings to tremble uneasily. Awoo! All the demonic beast mounts let out low growls, their eyes filled with reverence as their bodies trembled. The members of the Black Cavalry Regiment trembled. That formless aura was too terrifying, almost causing their yuan spirits to shatter. After that, Du Xiaofu closed his eyes, no longer speaking. The one who was the most shocked was none other than the middle-aged leader. The seal on his body had disappeared. His yuan spirit was no longer suppressed, but the shock in his eyes was even more intense. His cultivation base was at the world domain realm, but in front of this young man, he was like an ant. Such a young man was simply too strong. One could only imagine how strong he was. This was definitely not an ordinary person. "Sir, please wait a moment." The middle-aged leader came back to his senses, and his attitude changed. He signaled to Du Xiaofu, and then pulled up his demonic beast mount and left with the people of the Black Cavalry Corps. The members of the Black Cavalry Regiment actually left? He seems to have killed the members of the Black Cavalry Regiment, and the Black Cavalry Regiment couldn't do anything about it. The aura just now was too strong. Who is that young man? Is he a paragon heaven-chosen? Lin Village. I don't think I've heard of it before. Is he going to participate in the Divine Temple's test? With such strength, he should be able to pass the test, right? The surrounding onlookers came back to their senses. Low murmurs could be heard. They were very surprised. No one came near, but no one left either. They wanted to watch the show. They didn't know if the Black Cavalry Corps would bring people over. Du Xiaofu closed his eyes and rested. He did not move or shake, as if everything around him had nothing to do with him. However, Du Xiaofu was very clear that there was only a single early-stage true saint in the entire Jadefall City. In any case, he had already decided to go all out. Even if he wanted to make a move, there was nothing to be afraid of. But then, Du Xiaofu opened his eyes, and a faint golden light flashed out. Young man, you are so strong. Are you really from the Lin family village? An old man appeared. There was a halo of light around him. It was like a divine halo. The space around him started to distort, and the surroundings started to blur. This was a spatial barrier. At this moment, the surrounding space was blocked, and the people outside couldn't see this place. This old man appeared to be in his 60s. He was clad in a light-colored robe, and his hair was jet black. His complexion was ruddy, and his eyes were especially bright and deep. Just a single glance at him would cause people to feel as though they were about to sink in. Du Xiaofu raised his eyes, and when he saw this old man, he was somewhat surprised. This old man was a true Saint Talisman Master, and his Yuan divinity was extremely powerful. I'm from the Lin village. After that, Du Xiaofu replied. He wasn't nervous at all. He had long known that there were true saints in Jadefall City, but this was the only one. The Lin village is a small place, right? I didn't expect there to be such an extraordinary young man here. Truly not simple. The old man smiled, staring at Du Xiaofu, as though he wanted to see through Du Xiaofu. But the result left him astonished. Senior, are you also from the Yu clan? Du Xiaofu asked. He didn't act arrogantly because he felt that this old man didn't have any malicious intent. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so polite. I'm the city lord of Jadefall City. My surname is Sun, and I have nothing to do with the Yu clan. The old man spoke, but his gaze never left Du Xiaofu. You killed the members of the Black Cavalry unit. No matter what the reason is, there will be some trouble. Senior, do you wish to act? Du Xiaofu asked. Since you didn't kill anyone in my Jadefall City, it has nothing to do with me. However, when you enter the Sage Hall tomorrow, you have to be more careful. The old man laughed. Many thanks for Senior's reminder. I don't believe that the Yu clan can cover the sky with a single hand. Du Xiaofu replied. From the looks of it, the city lord of Jadefall City wasn't someone from the Yu clan. Since he could warn him, it had nothing to do with the Yu clan. The Yu clan can't cover the sky with a single hand. But young man, the Sage Hall is much more complicated than you imagine. The old man looked at Du Xiaofu and asked, Are you also going to the Sage Hall to participate in the test? Yes. Du Xiaofu nodded. There was nothing to hide. The person you brought with you will be fine in Jadefall City. When you arrive at the Sage Hall tomorrow, if you are afraid that the Yu clan will cause trouble, you can go to the Sun clan first and say that I told you to go. There will naturally be people to take care of you. The old man said, Senior, why are you helping me? We don't seem to know each other, right? Du Xiaofu asked. In this world of cultivation where the strong preyed on the weak, he never believed in good intentions that didn't ask for anything in return. The old man looked at Du Xiaofu with a hint of surprise in his eyes. Indeed, we don't know each other. But for my Sun clan, there's no harm in doing so. We can even form good karma. Why not? Many thanks, Senior, Du Xiaofu said. He somewhat believed the words of the city lord. Young man, I hope you can get a good result in the test. Remember, if you need any help, you can go to the Sun clan. It won't be hard to find them in the Sage Hall. As the sound of his voice faded, the surrounding space rippled. After that, his figure vanished and everything returned to normal. And in the outside world, the space in front of him only warped for an instant. Jadefall City, great hall. 2 rows of figures stood there, one on each side, each with a powerful aura. On the other side, there were people from the Black Cavalry Regiment. Their auras were sharp and fierce. Among them, there was the middle-aged leader who was intimidated by Du Xiaofu not long ago. Impudent! Where did this brat come from? How dare he provoke the Sage Hall? Kill him! Near the head of the great hall, a man in his 50s sat there. His long hair draped over his shoulders, and he was clad in a brown robe. His gaze was gloomy, and cold light flickered in his eyes. Vice City Lord, that person is very strong. His origin seems to be extraordinary. The middle-aged leader of the Black Cavalry Regiment spoke. Humph, Lin Village. The old man slammed his hand on his chair, causing cracking sounds to ring out. He stood up and stared at the figures in the great hall. Wherever his gaze landed, the formless fluctuations of his aura would cause several people to go limp, their souls trembling. These people were none other than Lin Pu, Lin Yao, and the other members of the Lin Village. They were brought to the great hall and had never seen so many experts before. They had no way to resist and were completely suppressed. Is that person from your Lin Village? The old man who was addressed as the Vice City Lord stared at Lin Pu and the others. His eyes shone with sharpness as his voice reverberated through the great hall. His voice was like thunder in the ears of Lin Pu and the others, deafening their souls. Let's leave this matter to the Sage Hall. Bring these people from the Lin Village back. All of a sudden, a voice rang out in the great hall. Everyone's expressions changed. This was the voice of the City Lord. This matter actually alarmed the City Lord. City Lord, this tiny Lin Village actually dared to kill the members of the Black Cavalry Regiment. We can't let them off so easily. They must be killed. The Vice City Lord spoke in a heavy voice, not wanting to spare the people of the Lin Village. You though, it's not your turn to make a decision in Jadefall City. This matter will be decided by the Sage Hall. Since you dared to kill people in Jadefall City, I won't spare you either. His voice grew sharper, shaking the entire great hall. Yudo's expression changed. His eyes twitched as his countenance turned extremely unsightly. In the brightly lit Jadefall City, the moonlight was diluted. In a secluded courtyard, a lithe figure was illuminated by the moonlight. Her jet-black hair cascaded down to her slender waist. Her long and slender legs, as well as her round buttocks, accentuated her curves. Her face was like a hibiscus, and her eyes were like stars, flickering with the light of the dawn. Not simple, even I can't see through him. In the courtyard, an old man spoke, his eyes flashing with bewilderment. This was none other than the old man's surnamed son, who claimed to be the City Lord of Jadefall City, whom Du Xiaofu had met earlier. Maybe that person has some sort of secret technique to conceal himself. Otherwise, how could there be someone granduncle can't see through? The young woman turned her head, smiling at the old man. Her smile was like a rose blooming in the middle of the night, moving the hearts of people. Last Chin's little mouth is getting more and more eloquent. The old man smiled, his gaze filled with benevolence as he looked at Sun Qin. This time, you came out of seclusion and passed by Jadefall City. After you return tomorrow, the future of the Sun Clan will depend on you. Hearing this, Sun Qin's expression froze. Her red lips parted slightly. Those clans are all very strong, especially Sister Limo and Yu Ming. Lu Limo is already heavily injured. Even if the Sage Hall did their best to heal her, it's impossible for her to recover in a short few days. Her strength will be greatly affected, and her competitiveness will be the lowest. It's a pity. As for Yu Ming, he's extremely shrewd and talented. Maybe he's even stronger than we imagined. He won't be too far away from stepping into the Saint Realm. The old man's gaze narrowed as he sighed. If the Yu clan really succeeds this time, in addition to Lu Limo's conditions, no one will be able to contend against the Yu clan. Why would Sister Limo take a liking to Yu Ming? Sun Qin whispered. Last Qin, just do your best. With your talent and cultivation, it's not like you don't have a chance. The old man smiled, but his smile was somewhat reserved. How could he not know that this chance wasn't too great? If we really meet, Yu Ming will definitely have to pay an absolute price if he wants to defeat me. Sun Qin's pearly white teeth parted as her eyes shone with a strange light. Mysterious runes flickered, and a vast ancient aura pervaded the air. When we return tomorrow, pay attention to that young man. I have a feeling that he's not simple, the old man said. Chapter 23:18. That young man was not old, but he showed no fear when facing him. The formless aura around him gave him an indescribable feeling and even made him feel a little uneasy. How could such a young man be simple? He had a feeling that something was going to happen. I don't think I've heard of such a strong person coming out of the Lin family village. Perhaps he maintained his youthful appearance, Sun Qin said, but then her eyes revealed a look of doubt. With her granduncle's cultivation and eyesight, how could he be wrong? If the old man maintained his youthful appearance, he would definitely not be able to escape her granduncle's eyes. They had the same appearance, but the vitality of the young man and the old man could never be hidden. Perhaps that young man really had something extraordinary about him. Qin lass, don't underestimate anyone. There's always someone better than you. I heard that Lu Limo met a young man in the Beast Alliance who killed Luoyu of the Luoyu clan with a single move. I heard that the young man exposed his identity and went on a killing spree in the Beast Alliance. He killed several experts at the initial stage of the Saint Beast realm. Even Feng Jin was severely injured by him and left in the end. Such a young man has already surpassed Lu Limo, and Yu Ming by too much. Sun Wu sighed. He was very shocked when he heard the news. He's so strong. There doesn't seem to be such a person among the younger generation of the human clan. Sun Qin's expression changed. She had been cultivating in seclusion outside and wasn't too clear about what had happened recently. However, she was certain that there was no such abnormal existence among the human clan. This matter still needs to be investigated. I only heard the news and didn't see it with my own eyes. Sun Wu opened his mouth and said to Sun Qin, Qin lass, the cracks outside have appeared again. Someone from the outside has already broken in. Granduncle, you mean that person is a human from the outside world? Sun Qin was stunned, and her beautiful eyes changed. As the leader of the younger generation of the Sun family, she knew many secrets and was even more shocked. Maybe. Sun Wu raised his eyebrows slightly as light fluctuated in his eyes. He said, if a young man from the outside world can reach such a level, then the outside world is much stronger than here. I'm afraid many people can't wait and want to go out. On the street, it didn't take long for half an incense stick to burn to arrive. Du Xiaofu saw Lin Pu, Lin Yao, and the others. Everyone's faces were pale, and they were in a sorry state. They had been greatly shocked and frightened. They had never seen such a big scene before. After seeing Du Xiaofu, it was as if they had seen their backbone, and they immediately went to his side. Sir, the wormhole will open at dawn. There are still 4 hours left. Would you like to find a place to rest? It was the middle-aged leader of the Black Knights, but he was very polite to Du Xiaofu. No need. We'll just wait outside, Du Xiaofu said. The Domain Realm middle-aged man from the Black Cavalry Corps didn't say much either. He told Du Xiaofu where the wormhole would be tomorrow and left on his demonic beast mount. What's going on? The Black Cavalry Regiment actually retreated and didn't attack? The surrounding spectators were dumbfounded. They had thought that there would be a huge battle, but they didn't expect that not only did the Black Cavalry Regiment not attack, they even sent the young man back. This was definitely the first time they had seen such a thing. That young man must have a great background that can't be revealed. Someone murmured in a low voice. Otherwise, given the style of the Black Cavalry Regiment, how could they give up so easily? Lin Pu, Lin Yao, and the old man from the Lin village all stared with their eyes wide open. They initially thought that they were doomed this time around. There were simply too many experts in Jadefall City. Just their auras alone were enough to make them feel as though they were nothing more than ants. Who would have thought that these experts would actually be so respectful, as though they were wary of this mysterious young man? Sir, where's Lin Feng? Moments later, the old man from the Lin village finally calmed down and thought of Lin Feng. Don't worry, Lin Feng has already gone to the Sacred Hall. He won't be fine. There's no need to ask. He will naturally appear when the time comes. Du Xiaofu replied. Hearing this, although everyone from the Lin village was puzzled, no one asked any more questions. After interacting with this young man on the way here, they trusted him very much. The vast mountain range was rich in spiritual energy. Spiritual birds and beasts roamed the mountains and plains, and exotic flowers and plants covered the land. This was an extraordinary place for cultivation. It was not a place that ordinary forces could occupy. This was the place where the Liu family cultivated. Speaking of the Liu family, it was indeed extraordinary among the human race. However, the Liu family was not ranked among the superclans. They could not be compared to the Yu family, Sun family, or even the first-rate clans. The reason was simple. In order to be ranked among the first-rate clans, the clan must have at least a Saint Realm expert. However, the strongest expert in the Liu family was only at the half-step Saint Realm. Although they had many talents, without stepping into the Saint Realm, they could not rise to the next level and step into the ranks of the truly great clans. But because of the appearance of Liu Limo, the day she became a Nirvana Grandmaster, she shone brightly and shook the entire human race. Some experts in the Sacred Hall hailed her as the most talented junior in the recent tens of thousands of years. It was very likely that she would become the strongest expert of the human race in the future. With such talent and elegance, Liu Limo's appearance became the undisputed leader of the younger generation of the human race. This caused the Liu family status in the human race to rise. Therefore, although the Liu family did not have any Saint Realm experts, any other great clans would have to give them some face. Bastard, you only know how to cause trouble. If they did not show mercy, you would not be able to get up now. Late at night, in the inner residence of the Sun family, an extraordinary middle-aged man with an angry look was scolding a young man in his late 20s. The young man was wearing a green robe, but it was not ostentatious. His figure was slender, and his long black hair was combed behind his head. A few strands of hair were draped over his shoulders. He was very handsome and looked like an elegant prince. However, at this moment, the young man's green robe had a few holes. His hair was a little messy, and he looked a little embarrassed. His face was pale, and it seemed that he had some minor injuries. The young man looked at the middle-aged man. He did not dare to look him in the eyes, but he said stubbornly, "That person from the Yu family was arrogant and despotic. He even went around saying that my sister would be a member of the Yu family sooner or later. I could not stand it, so of course I had to do something. Anyway, I did nothing wrong. That Yu Ming is not worthy of my sister." "You!" The middle-aged man was furious, but his face darkened and he calmed down a little. He sighed and said, "There are some things that you do not understand. If you had half of your sister's achievements, the Liu family would not have to do this. I am useless. If I had my sister's talent, Yu Ming would not have the chance to be so arrogant. The Yu family is obviously cheating. How shameless." The young man said angrily, "You are always so sloppy. If you had half of your sister's hard work, or even half of your sister's hard work, you might be able to enter the top 300 of the Saint ranking." The middle-aged man said in a deep voice. The difference between his daughter and his son was too big. Sometimes, he couldn't help but think that if the talent and achievements of his two daughters and son could be reversed, perhaps the Liu family would be able to truly rise. It was not a good thing that such talent and achievements fell on the shoulders of his eldest daughter. The responsibility of the Liu family was too great, and he should not let his daughter bear it. "I am also in the Saint ranking now," the young man whispered. "Liu Mingma, you still have the nerve to mention it. There are 1,000 ranks in the Saint ranking, and you are only at 999. In these 2 days, the examination of the Divine Palace will begin. I am afraid that you will fall to God knows where." He looked down and wanted to kick him. He knew his son's talent. If he had worked harder, he would not be like this now. The comparison between his two daughters and his son was simply a joke in the Divine Palace. Liu Mingma subconsciously stepped back. His father was angry, so it was better to avoid him. "Are your injuries okay?" Staring at Liu Mingma, who subconsciously stepped back, Liu Qingping's expression softened. He could not blame his son for this. If he could be stronger, he would not have to do this. He wanted his son to become a dragon, but he was not a dragon, so how could he want his son to become a dragon? "It's okay, just a small injury," Liu Mingma said. "There are already people arriving at the Divine Palace. All the great families are trying to rope in the young people with potential. I will leave this matter to you. Don't cause any more trouble. If you meet people from the great families, just avoid them. My Lu family has not reached that stage and cannot be compared to them. Lu Qingping sighed. Every time the divine palace examined, all the great families would try to rope in some young people with potential in advance to strengthen themselves. With the Lu family's current status, they would not be able to rope in any young people with potential. However, they were too lazy to see Lu Mingma walking around in front of them. If they want to rope in some young people, they would not cause any trouble. Got it. I will do it tomorrow morning, Lu Mingma said and left the inner residence. He did not want to be reprimanded by his father again. The middle-aged man did not move. He stood there blankly, deep in thought. After a long time, his expression was dignified and helpless. He muttered softly, "Could it be that the Lu family really has no choice this time?" A moment later, in an ancient secret room, Lu Mingma's figure appeared in the secret room. She gazed at the graceful figure that was sitting cross-legged on the stone bed and said softly, "Sister, are you really going to marry into the Yu family and marry that guy, Yu Ming? I keep having the feeling that he's not a good person." On the stone bed, the beautiful figure sitting cross-legged on the stone bed was surrounded by a radiance. There were mysterious runes fluctuating. Then, the radiance dissipated, revealing a cold and enchanting face. She opened her mouth and exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. Her long eyelashes trembled a few times. When she opened her eyes, the radiance fluctuated and the aura fluctuated, causing the secret room to tremble. This woman was incomparably beautiful and looked somewhat similar to Lu Mingma. It was Lu Limo. Looking at Lu Mingma, a smile appeared on Lu Limo's cold and enchanting face. She said, "Did you fight with someone again? Are you all right?" "Sister, I am serious. That Yu Ming looks like a dignified person, but he is definitely not a good person. You have to think carefully. You cannot marry him," Lu Mingma said. "I have given him a condition. At least he has not succeeded yet." Lu Limo looked at Lu Mingma and said, "In the entire younger generation of the human clan, apart from you, who else can be his opponent? You are seriously injured and cannot defeat him." Lu Mingma said anxiously, "Let's go back. I have to recover as soon as possible. If father knows that you are here, I am afraid that he will not forgive you." Lu Limo's red lips were still a little pale. She was smiling. "Sister, you have to think carefully." Lu Mingma helplessly left. In the secret room, Lu Limo was sitting cross-legged. Her eyes were blurred. She had no choice. Even her master could not say anything. She could not refuse anymore. She could only give him her last condition. Immediately, she thought of that lecher. He had been rude to her since they first met. He had even wanted to take her as a servant. Since she was born, no one had dared to speak to her like that. However, that lecher had taken liberties with her. He had hidden his cultivation and had stepped into the saint realm at such a young age. Thinking back to that guy's playful and unruly smile, Lu Limo could not help but think that if that lecher appeared, with his character, he would definitely not be able to control himself. He would definitely teach Yu Ming a lesson. If he defeated Yu Ming in the end, it would be better than marrying Yu Ming. That lecher is also not a good person. Lu Limo regained her senses and her pale cheeks flushed red. She didn't know why she was reminded of that lecher. He didn't look good and had so many beautiful women around him. He was definitely not a good person. Why would she compare him with Yu Ming? Was it really Yu Ming who saved me? Lu Limo thought back. That Saint Beast Realm expert was too strong. She was not his opponent even if she used all her strength. She was unable to cross the huge gap between them. The gap between them was too huge. At the last moment, she felt a familiar aura. However, she did not see it clearly and fainted. When she woke up, she only knew that Yu Ming and the other experts of the Yu clan had risked their lives to save her. Yu Ming was also severely injured. Now, the entire sacred palace was spreading the news that Yu Ming had risked his life to save her. Lu Limo felt that something was wrong. "I need to recover as soon as possible." Then, Lu Limo's expression returned to its usual coldness. She sat cross-legged with a calm expression. She formed hand seals and continued to heal her injuries. As long as she could recover to 90%, there was still hope. Although it was impossible in a few days, she had no other choice. That Lin clan is actually struggling at death's door. They are still jumping around. In the night, in the main hall of the Yu clan, an elder's face was gloomy. The jade slip in his hand was broken. It emitted a dim light and then turned into dust. Chapter 23:19. Pass down the order. Those from the Lin clan must not participate in the test. Be careful. Don't let this small matter affect the big picture. After that, the old man spoke. A cold light flashed in his eyes. The next morning, when the darkness before dawn passed, the first ray of sunlight rose from the eastern horizon. In the entire Jadefall city, countless auras were awakened, soaring into the sky. Rumble. In the vast square of Jadefall city, a spatial wormhole opened, causing the space to distort. Blinding light shone, illuminating half the sky. The spatial wormhole has opened. We can enter the Sage Hall now. I heard that the Sage Hall has gathered all the paragons of the human race. Experts are as common as the clouds. Experts from all over the world have gathered here. The entire Jadefall city was in an uproar. To most of the people here, this was their first time entering the Sage Hall. Du Xiaofu stood at the front of the crowd, with Lin Pu, Lin Yao, and the others beside him. They stared at the spatial wormhole that opened, and it didn't seem any different from the outside world. With Du Xiaofu's current cultivation base and strength, he was also able to construct a spatial wormhole. It was just that the stability of the spatial wormhole would be different for those with different cultivation bases. Simply put, the stronger one's cultivation base, the safer the spatial wormhole would be. Wormholes weren't absolutely safe. Once they encountered a spatial collapse, the people inside the wormhole would be in grave danger. This time, it's the most lively event in the entire human race. Those of the younger generation who can pass the test will be able to stay in the Sage Hall and obtain the best cultivation resources. It's only a matter of time before they step into the ranks of the strongest. This time, it's not just a test of talent, but more importantly, it's to select a new human emperor. The new human emperor will be selected from the younger generation of paragons. This is a grand occasion for paragons. Although we won't be able to participate, it's still the greatest event in the entire human race. We'll be able to witness the new human emperor. Discussions broke out in the square, causing it to be extremely noisy. Du Xiaofu was astonished. From the discussions in the surroundings, he knew that there would be a new human emperor this time. Could it be that the human sovereign was also born from competition? Du Xiaofu thought to himself. He did not know what conditions were needed to become the human sovereign. Du Xiaofu did not think too much about the position of Renhuang inside. As long as he could enter the Sage Hall, his goal would be considered accomplished. Oh, the familiar roars of demonic beasts could be heard. The Black Cavalry Regiment had appeared. Their auras were vast and sharp. Everywhere they passed, the crowd was in an uproar. At this moment, the Black Cavalry Regiment was escorting a young lady who was about 20 years old. She was tall and had a curvy figure. Her face was like a lotus flower, and she was very attractive. What a beautiful woman! She's so beautiful. Heavens, that's the young paragon of the Sun Clan, Sun Qin. She actually appeared in Jadefall City. The crowd cried out in alarm and retreated one after another. Everyone lowered their heads with reverence, not daring to look directly at him. Nirvana supremacy, immortal and imperishable. Du Xiaofu's gaze flickered as he stared at the alluring woman. This was a young Nirvana paragon. Her aura was hidden very deeply, and ordinary people would not be able to detect it. However, it could not escape Du Xiaofu's sharp senses. She had reached the level of immortal and imperishable. Lu Limo, Yu Ming, and this Sun Qin were not simple. Du Xiaofu's heart stirred. No wonder the human race could rise, and the Beast Alliance did not dare to easily invade. From the younger generation, it could be seen that the human race was filled with experts, and there were definitely existences that the Beast Alliance would be wary of. Sun Qin was riding on a demonic beast mount. She had a noble aura, and her eyes were as bright as the stars. Her skin was as white as snow. When she arrived at the spatial wormhole, her eyes landed on Du Xiaofu. However, some doubt immediately flashed across Sun Qin's eyes without leaving a trace. The young man that her granduncle had mentioned gave her an indescribable feeling. He was wearing a slightly tattered short shirt that exposed his faint, purplish-gold skin. He seemed to have an invisible aura as he quietly stood there. However, when she looked at him, her Yuan spirit actually faintly revealed a kind of inexplicable trembling. Although this trembling disappeared in an instant, it was enough to make Sun Qin feel astonished. She had never felt such a feeling before. Even when she met Lu Limo and the current human emperor, she did not feel such a feeling. Could it be an illusion? Sun Qin muttered. Her expression did not change. She was noble and moving, causing countless gazes in the surroundings to tremble. Please. The middle-aged leader of the Black Cavalry Regiment leaped off his mount. He was extremely respectful before Sun Qin, indicating for Sun Qin to be the first to enter the spatial wormhole. With a light tap of her foot, Sun Qin's slender and moving figure rose into the air. Like the most moving arc, she streaked across the void and directly entered the wormhole. Sir, please. After exiting the spatial wormhole, there will be arrangements and instructions from the Sacred Hall. After entering the Sacred City, you can directly go for the test. I hope that Sir's name will resound throughout the Sacred City. The middle-aged leader of the Black Cavalry Regiment spoke to Du Xiaofu, his tone extremely polite. Let's go. Du Xiaofu did not stand on ceremony. He waved his hand to Lin Pu and the others behind him, and with a tap of his foot, his silhouette shot into the spatial wormhole. Lin Pu and the others were extremely excited. They were about to arrive at the Sacred Hall, the sacred ground of the human race. They were finally about to get what they wanted. Everyone, line up and enter the spatial wormhole. The experts of the Black Cavalry Regiment had already started to maintain order, allowing the people of Falling Jade City to enter the spatial wormhole. Some of the elders and middle-aged men and women all had a jade slip in their hands, allowing them to enter the spatial wormhole. This was a jade slip of passage, and its value was not low. There were too many people entering the spatial wormhole to head to the Sacred Hall, and the spatial wormhole was unable to withstand such a huge wave of people. Hence, there was an absolute limit. Those of the younger generation participating in the test could pass through, but those who sent them off had to pay a hefty price. They had to spend a huge sum of money to purchase a jade slip of passage. No one dared to fish in troubled waters. The deterrence of the Black Cavalry Regiment was definitely extraordinary. No one from the Black Cavalry Regiment approached Du Xiaofu and the others from the Lin village behind him to ask for a jade slip of passage. They were already so intimidated that they could only close one eye and close the other. Inside the spatial wormhole, Lin Pu, Lin Yao, and the others were all extremely curious. This was the first time they had entered a spatial wormhole, and they had only heard of it before. Not long after, about an hour, the light in front of them grew more and more dazzling. They had already arrived at the exit. Du Xiaofu reminded Lin Pu and the others as they flew out of the spatial wormhole. As soon as they came out of the spatial wormhole, the rich spiritual qi of heaven and earth assailed their nostrils. It carried an ancient aura, and it was much richer than in the cultivation grounds of the Yu clan. What was reflected in Du Xiaofu's eyes next surprised Du Xiaofu. Originally, Du Xiaofu thought that there would be a huge square outside the spatial wormhole. He did not expect that it would be on a vast mountain range. The mountains rose and fell, and towering trees were densely packed below. The sea of trees rose and fell, and there were demonic beasts roaring and ferocious birds flying in the sky. There were also many figures stepping into the void, emanating powerful auras. Up ahead, Du Xiaofu saw the young supreme of the Sun clan, Sun Qin. She was carried by a snow-white spiritual bird, and there were many cultivators who came forward to welcome her. Their auras were very powerful, and many people around them looked at her in awe. You can come with me to the Sun clan. Suddenly, such a clear sound transmission fell into Du Xiaofu's ears. It was very pleasant to the ear, like the cry of a lark. Du Xiaofu glanced at Sun Qin, feeling somewhat surprised. This was Sun Qin's voice transmission. Many thanks, but there's no need for that. Du Xiaofu transmitted his voice back. Yesterday, the city lord of Jadefall City was someone from the Sun clan. However, Du Xiaofu didn't think too much about it. Most probably, the Sun clan wouldn't be inferior to the Yu clan. They would definitely have experts overseeing them. After arriving at the Sun clan, although he would be able to guard against the Yu clan, it wouldn't be convenient for him to do things. Let alone this time around, Du Xiaofu didn't come here to avoid the Yu clan. He wasn't afraid of trouble. Upon hearing that, Sun Qin's countenance darkened. Given her attitude, she wouldn't have placed an unfamiliar young man in her heart. But earlier, she didn't know why, but she actually opened her mouth. Sun Qin didn't expect that she would be rejected by the other party when she took the initiative to invite him. Since when would there be anyone who would reject her? Most probably, there wouldn't be anyone in the entire human race who would do so. As long as she casually opened her mouth, it was unknown how many young geniuses would rush over like tidal waves. However, that young man rejected her without any hesitation. Let's go. Looking at Du Xiaofu, Sun Qin's gaze was complicated. There was a hint of stubbornness and arrogance, as well as a hint of anger. She then waved her hands and left. The snow-white spirit bird flapped its wings and soared into the skies. Everyone, head ahead. The Saint City is 1,000 miles away. There will be people making arrangements. This voice reverberated through the void as people from the Black Knight Corps appeared. Whoosh whoosh, the sound of the wind breaking rang out. Some of them were already familiar with this as they flew ahead. There were even some who were welcomed and left on demonic beasts. Let's go. Du Xiaofu waved his hands and followed behind, allowing Lin Pu and the others to follow. This was only the periphery. The wormhole didn't lead directly into the Saint Palace. Perhaps it was for the sake of defending against enemies, but it was indeed much safer this way. If enemies were to invade, as long as they controlled the wormhole, they would be able to enter the Saint Palace directly. Along the way, the forests rose and fell. In order to take care of Lin Pu and the others, Du Xiaofu maintained his speed at a slow pace. Along the way, many figures overtook them like bolts of lightning. It seemed as though there wasn't just a single wormhole in the vicinity. Up ahead, there were more and more figures, as well as powerful auras. Oh, whoa. Up in the skies, there were demonic beast mounts howling. Those who were able to ride on demonic beast mounts here were all from the various superfamilies. Most likely, their statuses weren't simple at all, and they were extremely haughty as well. Not bothering to avoid others, they soared through the skies. A gigantic bird that looked like an eagle flapped its wings and soared through the skies. Its feathers were as sharp as blades, shining brightly with a sharp aura as it tore through the void. There were many figures riding on it, and they were not far away from Du Xiaofu and the others. As they soared through the skies, the wind howled, nearly knocking Lin Pu and Lin Yao down from the skies. Make way. Don't block the way. A loud voice rang out as a gigantic wolf soared through the skies. Its entire body glowed with light, with a wingspan of over 10 meters. There were many people riding on it, and their auras were extremely sharp. The source of the voice was none other than that gigantic wolf. The eyes of the gigantic wolf gleamed with sharpness as it soared through the skies, rushing straight for Du Xiaofu and the others. It had no intentions of dodging at all. Did I give you guys face? Du Xiaofu was enraged. These people were truly arrogant. He instantly stabilized himself and slammed his palm out behind him. Bang! As Du Xiaofu slammed his palm out, spatial ripples manifested in the air, directly sweeping towards the gigantic wolf. The two of them collided, causing a thunderous boom to ring out in the air. The gigantic wolf had no way to turn around and was directly smashed into the ground. Rumble! The earth quaked as the gigantic wolf smashed into the ground. Its body was already in tatters, and it was already on the verge of death. Over a dozen figures immediately soared into the sky from the gigantic wolf. Most of them were young, but there were a few middle-aged men and women with sharp auras. These people immediately glared at Du Xiaofu's group with dark and sharp gazes. They seemed to have sensed the auras of Lin Pu, Lin Yao, and the others, and did not take them seriously at all. One of them roared at Du Xiaofu, "Little bastard. You dare to attack the mounts of my Tao clan? You're courting death." As soon as he finished speaking, an old man in his 50s charged out. A vast aura suddenly rippled as he slammed his palm towards Du Xiaofu. His killing intent was sharp, and he showed no mercy at all. Oomph! Du Xiaofu snorted. The so-called forbidden from killing each other in the fearsome grounds was probably just empty talk. In the world of cultivators, the strong were revered in the face of absolute strength. So what if you killed them? Everything depended on one's strength and background. This could be seen from the old man's attack. Du Xiaofu made his move. A finger shot out and pierced through space. The old man had no idea what was going on, and a bloody hole appeared between his eyebrows. It was clean and neat. In an instant, Du Xiaofu's figure appeared beside the old man's corpse. A few chinquin bags fell into his hand, and he threw the corpse into the air. He looked at the dozen people who were already in a daze and said, "Hand over all your chinquin bags, or you'll end up like that old man." As their souls trembled and their eyes filled with shock and fear, the dozen people took out all their chinquin bags. Although Lin Pu and the others had seen this many times, they still could not help but tremble at the scene before them. Was this mysterious lord robbing them? After putting away the chinquin bags, Du Xiaofu swaggered off. When the surrounding creatures saw this scene, they were all dumbfounded and did not dare to come closer. However, the journey was not short. Along the way, there were a few groups of arrogant and domineering fellows who met Du Xiaofu. They were arrogant and overbearing. The result was already decided. Du Xiaofu was merciless. He killed a few people and took away all their chinquin bags. Gu Gu, Lin Pu, Lin Yao, and the rest of the Lin family village could not help but swallow their saliva. They were about to reach the holy city, which was equivalent to being at the foot of the divine temple. This mysterious lord actually dared to do this. Did he really not care about the divine temple? Whoa. Suddenly, the void in front of them was filled with aura. Dozens of demonic beast mounts rushed out. They were ferocious and ferocious. On top of them were experts from the Black Cavalry Corps in black armor. Every one of them was extraordinary. It's the Black Cavalry Corps. The appearance of dozens of experts from the Black Cavalry Corps immediately attracted the attention of many creatures in the vicinity. They all stopped in the void to watch. The dozens of Black Cavalry Corps were too powerful, especially the old man at the front. The talisman patterns on his black armor emitted a dazzling light. He was riding on the most ferocious demonic beast mount. His aura was vast, and he was at the Master Region realm. The old man swept his gaze across the crowd. Then, he fixed his gaze on Du Xiaofu, Lin Pu, and the other Lin family village disciples. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he said in a deep voice, "It's them. How dare they kill people from the Black Cavalry Corps? Take them back." Oh. As soon as the old man finished speaking, the dozens of experts from the Black Cavalry Corps behind him, including more than a dozen cultivators who had reached the domain realm, stepped out on their mounts. Their auras erupted as they surrounded Du Xiaofu and the others. Oh no! Lin Pu and the others could feel that this group of experts from the Black Cavalry Corps was extraordinary. They were exceptionally powerful. It seemed like the Black Cavalry Corps had been waiting for them to come. They definitely had something to do with the Yu family. Is the Yu family abusing their power? I wonder if the Black Cavalry Corps is acting on orders. A faint voice sounded. Not far away in the void, a spirit bird flew across the sky. There were many figures riding on it, but they were all very young. At the front was a young man in luxurious green clothes. He was tall and slender, and his long black hair was combed to the back of his head. A few strands of hair hung over his shoulders. He was very handsome, and he looked like an elegant young master. However, he wasn't ostentatious. He looked at the dozens of Black Cavalry Corps members. He was the one who had spoken just now. When he heard this voice, Du Xiaofu also looked over and saw the young man in luxurious green clothes. Then, his gaze fell on the two women behind the young man in luxurious green clothes. One of them was about 26 or 27 years old. She was beautiful and had an alluring figure. The other one was slightly younger, probably not even 20 years old. Her face carried a hint of immaturity, and her beautiful black hair was tied into a ponytail. Her figure was tall, and her long skirt was unable to cover up her graceful curves. She was also a Nirvana supremacy, and her natural talent was extraordinary. The Liu family. Du Xiaofu's eyes flickered. He remembered the two women. The older one seemed to be called Hongyu. A few days ago, after these two women interrogated the Yu family, The Yu family killed the middle-aged follower, and he took the opportunity to escape. At this moment, with the arrival of Lu Mingma, Lu Hongyu, and Lu Yunma, the Black Cavalry Corps members were stunned and moved. Even the leading master's expression changed slightly. He looked at Lu Mingma and the others and squeezed out a smile on his gloomy face. He said, "So it's the nephews of the Lu family?" Vice Commander of the Black Cavalry Corps, a dignified expert of the Yu family. "I don't dare to accept such a title. It's just that these people look unfamiliar and their cultivation isn't very strong. They should have just entered, but the Vice Commander of the Black Cavalry Corps has personally come to capture them. I don't know what crime they committed, but there are orders from above. Could it be that the Yu family is using their power to avenge private wrongs?" said Lu Mingma. He was displeased when he saw the Yu family. In any case, the Yu family couldn't do anything to him, so he didn't dare to fall out with them. Seeing that the Yu family actually had a Master Realm expert leading the Black Cavalry Corps, and they were all from the Yu family, to deal with a few unfamiliar outsiders, Lu Mingma guessed that it was definitely not a good thing. Here's another huge chapter. I'm done updating today.